Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Yahusha, living water. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. I'll sing out with praise to you. Your name is beautiful to me, my King. I'll sing out with praise to you. My heart desires to honor you, my God. I sing out with praise to you, Yahusha. Living Torah, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Yahusha, living Torah, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. I sing out with praise to you. Your name is beautiful to me, my King. I sing out with praise to you. My heart desires to honor you, my God. I sing out with praise to you, Yahusha. Living Torah, Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah. Baruch haba Hashem Yahuwah.
Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah our Elohim. Yahuwah is one, and you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand. And they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. And the second one is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Ooh. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Glad y'all made it here on this fine Shabbat day. Let's see if I can center that camera just a little bit better than that. Yeah. Maybe, maybe not. Okay. All righty. So it's been a long week for us. Been a fun week as well. We've had another baby horse, a little filly girl. Very beautiful as a button. Pretty as can be. Blessed greatly by Yahuwah. And looking forward to the rest day. Yahuwah's rest day. Yom Shabbat. And we congregate, we worship Yahuwah, we praise Yahuwah, we pursue to know Yahuwah at a deeper level. And these are the things that the Nazarene do. And we must endure through the struggles of this world. And the struggle of life that we experience as we live on this carbon copy planet. And the more and more we get to know Yahuwah and pursue to know Yahuwah, easier things get. And he replaces our sorrow and our worrying and our fear with his peace and his joy and his love and his truth. And he gets us through every day, just knowing him, thanking him and putting him first in our life, and takes away a lot of sorrow and pain. So here we are, another scripture study together. And I think this is a pretty good one here. We're going to talk about the flesh versus the ruach, or spirit, if you will. And this is something that I find comes up once in a great while, and people seem to struggle with it. And so I thought, you know what? Maybe we can do a study on just that, and that by itself. And maybe we can, if we just concentrate on this fact that there is a battle, daily battle between those who have been born again, if you will, with the flesh and their spirit, or their old man, the outer man, the flesh, mind of the flesh, versus the inner man, the new creature, or the mind of the ruach. So there's this battle that exists until the day Yahushua returns, or we fall asleep and our body returns back to dust. So I think it's a very, very good study. And I think we're all going to get a really good idea of what's going on here after this study. Shouldn't be much any confusion left on this. At least I hope not. It's something we've talked about quite a bit in the past, but I think we need to focus on this and give it some serious study time together. I think a lot of us forget what's going on, and of course the battle's in the mind, and so the adversaries, our enemies, are able to point fingers and put thoughts in our mind and suggestions leading us to believe that we're all still sinners, even after the rebirth. But Scripture clearly says otherwise. We are no longer sinners. Matter of fact, it tells us that we're powerless to sin. And so we need to understand this. So anybody that's mixed up on that, not quite getting that, you still think you're a sinner, you still think you sin every day, even after you've been water immersed, even after you've been immersed with the Ruach, even if you believe these things, you need to stick around and watch this one. This will be something that could get you over the hump or past the stumbling block to somewhere where you need to be, called the spiritual realm, so that you can walk in spirit and truth rather than being burdened down with falsehood and not quite understanding what's happened to you after your rebirth in the spiritual realm and why that changes everything about the carbon copied world that we walk in the flesh in. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about this evening. And let me say hello to a few people, and we will get started. Sandra Brunston, glad to see you, sister. Levi Davis, glad you're here, brother. Lorana Moran, glad you're here. Sharon C., glad you're here, sister. Brother Ike, glad you're here, brother. Peggy Russell, glad to see you on here, sister. Lou White, glad you're on here, brother. Phyllis White, glad you're on here, sister. Lee Huff, glad you're here, brother. Kate Connell, glad you're here, sister. Bruce Baginski, glad you're here, brother. Rose Wright, glad you're here, sister. Yami, glad you're here, sister. Raul, glad you're here, brother. Yahushua HaMashiach, Rapture Judgment. Faree Yashki, glad you're here. Ridge Hill Jilly, glad you're here, sister. Mr. Three Jobs, glad you're here, John. Glad you're here, brother John. Ted Boyd, glad you're here, brother. All righty. We'll get started here now. So I guess the best place to start here on this study would be in Scriptures, in Exodus 19, verse 5 and 6. And we'll be reading, I'll be reading out the BYNV this evening. If you have your copy of BYNV, please feel free to turn to all these references and read it for yourself. Or if you get better off, if you think you get more out of it by just being still and listening, that's great too. Whatever's best for you. So BYNV, Exodus 19, 5 and 6 says, "And now if you diligently obey my voice and shall guard my covenant, then you shall be my treasured possession above all the peoples, for all the eretz is mine. And you shall be to me a reign of priests and a set-apart nation." Okay, so here we see here that the set-apart nation that there's a coming set apartness to Yahuwah's people. And he will not only set us apart as treasured possessions, but priests and kings above all others. And so this is a beginning of the set apart command, or the knowledge of set apartness, in which later on we find out that we're fully capable of being set apart from our vessel, from our flesh, and not in a way that it dies, but in a way that it lives. And we're going to try to get deep into this subject now. But that's the beginning of this matter here. And it goes on and on about set apartness throughout the Tanakh. But I want to quickly jump to, I think most of us understand that we have been given a set apart command, and which is huge. Okay. So let's look at, I want to jump straight into the Netzarim writings. And I guess what we need to do is understand the process first. And then once we understand the process, then I think we can get to understand how sharply that we're able to set ourselves apart from our fleshly vessel, from the old man, and then even the world, and then even the devil. Okay, and so let's start in John Yehukanan, chapter 3, verse 3, and we'll go to 6, or maybe a little farther. It says, Yahusha answered and said to him, Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is begotten from above, he is unable to see the reign of Yahuwah. I want to back up to verse 1. I want you to see something here. And there was a man of the Prushim, this is a Pharisee, right? His name was Nicodemus, and he was a ruler of the Yehudim. And this one came to Yahusha by night and said to him, Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher come from Elohim, for no one is able to do these signs you do if Elohim is not with him. So this Pharisee who's sneaking around being taught by Yahusha to avoid persecution or being ridiculed or from other religious sects, has acknowledged here that these signs, wonders, miracles that he has seen Yahusha do, could only be done by Yahuwah. Okay, so in other words, you do it if Elohim is not with you. You do these signs you do. If Elohim is not with you, you couldn't do them. And so whether or not he's fully understanding that he's Yahuwah incarnated, or if he's just understanding that Yahuwah has to be working these signs through this man, through the hands of this man, it's Yahuwah doing it. Either way, he's on track to truth here. I just want you to see that. So he's acknowledging there's something else other than him just being a normal man. Otherwise, he couldn't be doing these signs. So what he's saying is Yahuwah has to be involved here in some fashion. Okay. We know that he is Yahuwah. Okay. But just want you to see that they weren't oblivious to the fact that these signs, miracles, and wonders that Yahushua was doing couldn't be, done by an ordinary man. They knew that, whether or not they were accepting it to be Yahuwah having something to do with them, or he was doing them through Beelzebub, the devil, was their way, whichever way they were thinking. Some thought he was doing it through demonic forces, but this man did not. He said, I know it's, somewhere or other, who was involved in these signs you're doing. Why? Because they were for good. He didn't do anything was against, to hurt people. Everything he did was to help people. So it had to come from Elohim. So this man understood that. Okay, so let's go up here. It says, begotten from above, he is unable to see the reign of Yahuwah. So this becomes a big time salvation issue, to be born from above or begotten from above. So Nicodemus said to him, how is a man able to be begotten when he is old? Is he able to enter into his mother's womb a second time and be born? And Yahusha answered, truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is begotten of water and the Ruach, he is unable to enter into the reign of Yahuwah. That which has been begotten of the flesh is flesh, and that which has been begotten of the Ruach is Ruach. Do not marvel that I said to you, you have to be begotten from above. The Ruach breathes where it wishes, and you hear the sound of it, but do not know where it comes from and where it goes. So is everyone who has been begotten of the Ruach. And Nicodemus answered and said to him, how is it possible for this to take place? And Yahusha answered and said to him, are you the teacher of Yesharel and do not know this? Truly, truly, I say to you, we speak what we know and witness what we have seen, and you do not receive our witness. If you do not believe when I spoke to you about earthly matters, how are you going to believe when I speak to you about heavenly matters? And no one has gone up unto the heaven except he who came down from the heaven, the son of Adam. Okay. So Yahusha has revealed a very vital, very critical piece of information here to this Pharisee, and letting him know that you cannot be delivered unless you enter into the reign of Yahuwah. And you cannot enter into the reign of Yahuwah unless you've been born or begotten from above by Ruach and water. Of course, this Pharisee is not understanding any of that. And very interesting here, he goes into earthly matters and heavenly matters or spiritual matters. And so we see that there's two different understandings here. There's the understanding of the literal or the fleshly mind. And then there's the understanding of the spiritual things in the spiritual mind, the spiritual realm. Two different things. It's just like flesh and spirit are two different things. The mind of the flesh and the mind of the Ruach are two different things. And Yahusha's doing a pretty good job here of letting him know that. Okay. So now you're thinking with a literal mindset, with the fleshly mindset, mind of the flesh. And what Yahusha is talking to this guy about is what happens in the spiritual realm. So when things are done in the fleshly realm, it has a mirror effect in the spiritual realm. Things happen. Things reciprocate off of what is said and done in this carbon copy world over into the spiritual realm. Okay, and so this is what Yahusha is trying to relate here. So this is the beginning of understanding that there's a set-apart command, and what the set-apart command exists of. And it's the fleshly matters and the spiritual matters. Two different worlds, two different meanings, two different ball games. Okay, so what's happening here? Well, he's saying unless you're born of water and the Ruach, you're unable to enter into the reign of Yahuwah. Okay, so obviously the water, immersion of the water, born of the water would be water immersion, and that's done in the fleshly realm. And then this immersion of the Ruach HaKodesh, the immersion of the Spirit of Yahusha, is done in the spiritual realm. But it does take place within us. Why? Because we have a spiritual being in us. That's why, which is affected by what happens in the spiritual realm. It's called your inner man. So your outer man, the fleshly man, goes under the water and he gets wet and cold. But the spiritual man, the inner man, has a different application to the spiritual or the inner man. It's totally different scenario, totally different vibe, totally different experience. So now that we see that we have the flesh and we have the spirit in us, so we're dealing with both the earthly matters and the spiritual matters within ourselves. And since the spiritual realm and the fleshly realm can be set apart, in which it is, then so can we. So can we. Not necessarily sharply dividing one, which we are, our flesh and spirit are one. I'm not talking about sharply dividing one, which cannot be done, but setting one apart from the other, which is what Yahuwah not only wants, but commands us to do. All right. So to further understand this, let me try to explain this set apart example here in John 3:5 as best I can. Okay, so we get called out of the world. And Yahuwah teaches us, and then he sends us to Yahushua. And during this process, he wakes us up. And once we're awake and we're beginning to understand truth and get to know Yahuwah and who he is and what he wants, then we're able to realize that we were wrong. And we've been wrong all along, because we've been in direct violation of Yahuwah's instructions for a long time. So we understand these things. Yahuwah teaches us these things, and he wakes us up, and then we begin to feel remorseful. And we understand, oh man, what have I done to my Creator? What have we done to our Creator? And you start feeling remorseful and sorrowful, and you want to start thinking, what can I do to make things right? Well, nothing. But one thing we can do is rely on Yahusha's righteousness and not our own. So what do? Well, we confess that we are a sinner and we were wrong, and we have broken every single 10 commandment, all the 10 Debarim, plus a whole lot more of Yahuwah's instructions. And we get to the point where we say, I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this anymore, Yahuwah. I don't want to hurt anybody anymore. Take away my strength, my willingness and wantingness to hurt people and to hurt you. Remove it from me. I'm tired of hurting people. I'm tired of hurting you. I surrender. All I want to do is love you, love others, and be a good servant. Be the best I can be for you. And so then we have a change of mind. And all of a sudden our mind changes and we're no longer wanting to go out and hurt people, hurt Yahuwah, commit sin. Sin hurts not only you, but it hurts a lot of other people. It's like a domino effect. It hurts you, it hurts everybody around you. And so once we get to that mindset, and then so we confess, we repent, we tell them we don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of being like this. Change me, make me more like Yahusha. And once we reach the point of a poor spirit, a broken heart, poor spirit, we come to him, crawling to him, or perhaps on our knees, perhaps on our belly, and say, save me, deliver me, help me, heal me, Yahuwah. I'm sorry for all of these things I've been doing to you and to others. And so Yahuwah sees that remorseful heart and that true repentance. If you really, truly are feeling like that, Yahuwah has touched your heart and he's called you out. And so it's really not the flesh that's doing this, but your inner man has been awoke. And your inner man has seen that there is a way out, a way to get healed. And he understands. And so he cries out for deliverance to Yahusha. And then the set apart, understanding of the set apartness can start working in you. And then you can begin to divide yourself away from the mind of the flesh and the mind of the Ruach, and choose the way of the Ruach instead of the way of the flesh. You can make that decision. So once we do this, then we generally, what we're going to do now is we're going to be water immersed. And once we've reached this true point of deliverance and remorsefulness, we go to be water immersed. The Ruach, Yahuwah teaches us. So we go to the lake, to the stream, to be water immersed. Now, it's okay to go with someone else. You can take as many people you want with you, or you can go by yourself. It doesn't matter. Most of the examples we have in Scripture is somebody is with them when they get immersed. So there's nothing wrong with it. And there's also nothing wrong with you getting immersed by yourself. I do believe that I can prove that Paul self-immersed. But we won't go there right now. But what I want you to understand is one thing. If you're there by yourself, great. If you're there with one other person, that's great. If you're there with 100 other people, that's great. But here's the thing you must understand. They don't get to talk for you. So Yahuwah wants to hear your confession, your repentance, and your cry for help out of your own mouth. Because from out of the heart comes the truth. And so he wants to hear it from you, not someone else. They can help you. They can go into the water with you. They can assist you to lay down in the water and fully immerse yourself, and even help you back up, especially if you're handicapped or you're not in the perfect shape. You need somebody with you. But they don't talk. They only assist you as you go under the water and back up. You are the one that has to cry out for salvation and confess your sins. So when you do this, you go under the water. What are you doing? Well, you're getting ready to set yourself apart from your flesh. You're getting ready to obey the set apart command. So when you go under the water, you're putting the fleshly body, your fleshly body, or the old man, to rest. He's going to die with Mashiach in the true pattern of Mashiach. And when you do this, and you go under the water, you should be thinking in your mind about what's going on. Okay, I'm going to pay the full penalty of my sins, and now I'm going to die with Mashiach and be buried. And that's what happens when you go under the water. And when you do that, then your body will be set apart from your ruach, because it's dead, but your ruach is not at this point. Okay, and so in the spiritual realm, a transfiguration happens. Your old man dies, but it's transformed into Yahusha's body. It's his temple when it comes back up. So you go under the water, you've died with Mashiach. So when you come back up out of the water now, your sins are washed off of your inner man. Okay, it's cleaning it up. It's also cleaning the body in the spiritual realm, because he's cleaning out his temple as well. But in the literal realm, it's left in the grave and it's dead. It's buried for a while, for just a few seconds there. So when you come back up out of the water, you pass through the water and get cleansed. Your sins cleansed off your inner man. And the blood of the Lamb of Yahuwah, it's applied as well, and blots out all your sins in the Shemayim. There's nothing up there with any crime attached to your name on it. After you come up out of that water, the blood's blotted it out. The water has washed you clean. So you come up out of the water, and as soon as you break water, you're born again. You're reborn. And at that point, you've been resurrected with Mashiach, the true pattern Mashiach. You died with Mashiach, break the water, now you've been resurrected with Mashiach. And now your inner man has been cleaned up. It's sinless. There's no stains on it. There's no blemishes, no spots, no wrinkles, no sin. Your inner man has been clean now. And once you come up now, and spiritually, your old man paid the price and he's dead. You've been born again in the Ruach by the immersion of that water and the blood, which is like a woman when she gives birth to a child. When the first time you're born in this literal realm, you come out of her womb, out of water and blood, and you're born. Well, you come up out of the water and the blood, you break that water, come up resurrected in the true power of Mashiach. Now you're reborn as a spiritual person or a son of light. You're a son of Yahuwah now. You're born from above of Yahuwah, no longer of below, of the literal realm, but of the spiritual realm. Okay, so your body, which obviously you're still in at this point when you come up out of the water, will be considered now Yahusha's body, or his temple, if you will. Okay, has he entered it yet and taken residence? Maybe. He can do it when you come right up out of that water. He can come down, immerse you with the Ruach HaKodesh and enter you and take up residence. And if he does, he takes that cleaned up inner man and seals it with his Ruach and protects it from sin for the day of redemption. And that body has become his body now, his dwelling place, his tent, his temple. No longer yours, but his. Our job at this point is to do the best we can of keeping that temple clean. We got to keep it clean now. It's no longer ours. We're just taking up residence in it with the Ruach who has us protected, sealed for the day of redemption. Does that mean that our inner man was going to be judged and thrown into the lake of fire at the second death until this happens? Yeah. Because before you set yourself apart from the flesh and the spirit, you're one. Okay, and so your fleshly sin, and your inner man and your outer man was collaborating. It was working together to hurt others and to hurt Yahuwah and to sin. And so the inner man was right in on all the sinning that the flesh was doing. But once that you went through this set apart process, now you're set apart from the flesh and cleaned up. The flesh has been put off. Okay, and so your inner man has been cleaned up with the water and the blood, right? And as soon as it comes up out of that water, before it can do anything at all, for any sin can penetrate or touch it, Ruach seals it for the day of redemption. You're cleaned up. Now sin can't penetrate you, so it stays clean. It becomes a virgin bride, clean, white as snow. That's why Scripture says, your sins may be as scarlet, but they will be white as snow. Okay, so this is the set apart procedure that gets us going. Okay, this is what we got to understand. Now, you can receive the Ruach right instantly, basically when you break water. You can receive the Ruach before your water immersion. If you have a pure heart, and that means your inner man hasn't been contaminated at all with sin, because you were a righteous person and you only sought good. You know, you didn't chase bad or evil or wickedness or sin. You know, you were able to keep yourself from it, and not your flesh is so much, but your inner man was able to repel the sin because you disliked it. You didn't willingly commit the sin. You didn't wantingly want to do the sin. It wasn't something that you got pleasure out of, and you had remorse about it, and you repented it. You tried to you turned your back on it and begged for forgiveness because your flesh was running wild, but your pure heart kept your inner man from being contaminated. You can be immersed before the water immersion. Yahuwah sees a pure heart, which they're rare. A pure heart's rare. And then he seals it before the water immersion so that it can't be, at that point, I'll seal it right now, so before any sin can touch it. Or You can get immersed with the Ruach HaKodesh later that day, the next day, next week, a month from now, whatever. And if that happens, there's something going on there that needs to be addressed. I don't want to get off on all of that, but the thing I want you to see here is when Yahusha said, don't worry about men who can only destroy your body, but worry about Yahuwah, who can just take your body, destroy both your body and your spirit, man, and throw them into Gehenna, which is another term for lake of fire, the second death. You see that? So if you didn't get your inner man cleaned up and set apart from the flesh, it's hidden for Gehenna. But once you're able to separate it by the immersion of the Ruach, then your inner man's going to be delivered. It's sealed for the day of redemption. That means you're protected. He's protecting you for when he comes back and raises your body up or changes your body in the blink of an eye and gives you an immortal body, and then he puts that Ruach in there, and so that you can have a body. But it'll be an immortal body, not a fleshly body. All right, so now hopefully through this set apart process here that most people call salvation plan, or being born again, we can see how it is possible for our flesh and our Ruach, our spirit, our inner man, to be one, but yet set apart from each other, not divided, not sharply dividing one, but setting our inner man, our spirit, apart from our fleshly man. And then so once we see this, and we can understand this, then we can see that as long as we're walking on the dust, we have to be in a body. And so we remain in this body, right, that had died. Well, this body is still seeking sin. The body continues to want to feed off of sin and worship death. And so our inner man, being set apart from that, is no longer responsible for that, what that fleshly body does. Why? Because that fleshly body cannot inherit the reign of Yahuwah, no matter what you do or it does. It's already been tried, convicted, sentenced, judged to death, and sentenced to death, judged and sentenced to death. Nothing it can do. It's going back to dust. Unless you happen to be the last generation at the return of Yahusha, and you're alive at his second coming, and he transforms you in the blink of an eye and gives you your immortal body. Other than that, it's going back to dust. It's going to die in this literal world, this fleshly world, because that's what happens in this fleshly world. Subtraction. So that's the set apart process. And so once we go through the set apart process, then our inner man can't sin. Our inner man, it's impossible for our inner man to sin. Why? Because you're immersed with the Ruach HaKodesh is in you. He has that sealed for the day of redemption. And so let me see if I can draw a picture of that. We'll just say kind of a silly little picture here, we'll say. But we'll just look at this. It's pretty simple. A kid can understand it. So see that right there, a little inner circle? That's your inner man. See the big circle around it? That's the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, and so it has you sealed, protected, where no sin cannot penetrate through the Ruach HaKodesh to get to you. He's got you sealed and protected. See, the arrows are sin. They can't touch your inner being anymore. Now with the Ruach protecting it, the Ruach repels sin. There's no darkness in him. Sin can't touch the Ruach. So as long as he has you sealed, you remain a virgin bride until he gives you your mortal body. So there's the set-apartness now process. If you all are picking up what I'm laying down on that one, we'll continue on from here. I just want you to see how it's possible. All right, so in this world, we have enemies. And specifically, we have 3 enemies. And those 3 enemies are the world. Because if you're friends with the world, you're an enemy with Yahuwah. So the world is your enemy. Your fleshly body, your flesh is your enemy. Not other people's flesh. Your enemy is not flesh and blood, but the principalities of darkness. It's spiritual, demonic entities, okay, that attack your mind and influence other people around you, which influences your life in all kinds of different ways. So your flesh, and then the third one is obviously the devil and his company. Okay, so those are our 3 enemies that we have to battle every single day of our life, that we remain walking in the dust. And we have to remain set apart from it. Now, we can't just be set apart from it and not go around it, right? We'd have to leave Earth in order to do that. So that's not possible, but it is possible that we remain set apart in Yahuwah to be able to do that. And of course, we're going to get dirty. Of course, we're going to get dusty and dirt on especially our feet. And that's what the feet washing is all about. It's coming from the world, battling and fighting that daily war with the enemies of our existence, of our life, which is the world, our flesh, and the devil and company. Sometimes we need to wash our feet. And if we wash other people's feet, it's even more powerful. So let's take a look at that in James 3:15. Jacob, really, James is a substitute name that was put in there by the writers of the English Authorized Version, KJV, in order to honor King James. And so they changed Jacob's name to James, or substituted it to honor King James, their sovereign. But it's really Jacob. But just so that you know what I'm talking about, James 3:15. James 3:15 says, "This is not the wisdom coming down from above, but it is earthly, sensual, demonic. For where jealousy and self-seeking are, there is confusion in every foul deed." Okay, so jealousy and self-seeking, bad news, right? All right, so what's Jacob telling us here? He's saying that back up to 14, it says, "But if you have bitter jealousy and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast against and lie against the truth. This is not wisdom coming down from above, but it's earthly." So earthly is the earth, obviously, is one of our enemies. And then sensual, or really flesh. The flesh is one of our enemies, and not other people's flesh, but our own flesh. That's where we're battling every day because it wants to go sin. Now, as long as the Ruach HaKodesh has you sealed, if it does sin, that sin isn't going to penetrate the Ruach and get to you and contaminate you again and cause your inner man to be thrown in Gehenna along with your body. But it will protect you. The flesh will take on that sin, but the Ruach HaKodesh will protect you from it, okay? So in other words, you can expect to lose some battles to the flesh. And then demonic, okay? So demonic would be the devil and his company, okay? His company. Battling you in the mind, okay? And so there it is, the world, the flesh, and the devil and company are your three enemies spoken about here in James 3:15. So, like I said, you can expect to lose some battles, but here's the big news. Breaking news coming at you right now. Our job is to minimize the flesh's victory. And so since the flesh wants to continue to sin because it's part of this world, okay, we don't let it. And so instead of going along with the desires of going out to the nightclubs and trying to pick up a partner, go whoring around, bowing down to crosses, doing, voluntary celebrating holidays, traditions, drinking, doing drugs, doing all these things, stealing, being mean to your neighbor, fighting, brawling, whatever it is, try to minimize it. And instead of going along with it like you used to, if you're a person that used to go along with all that kind of stuff, then fight against it. Don't do it. When you feel like you want to do it, break out the scriptures and start reading the scriptures, start praying right there and then. Do anything you can to strengthen your inner man so that it has the power to overcome the flesh and not allow it to sin. And so this is what you'll be doing. Once in a great while, that flesh wins. And so you smoke a joint or you do something you shouldn't have done, whatever it is. And then hopefully you have remorse. And so you didn't do it intentionally. Okay, you had a weak moment. You were overtaken by the flesh, right? You didn't do it wantonly or intentionally or purposely or because you like doing it. You got caught in a weak moment and lost that battle. Well, you get up and brush yourself off and continue to fight that flesh. And next time it tries to get you to do that, you win. Don't do it. And you continue to do that where that desire is no longer found in you. And then the flesh stops bothering you with it. Maybe comes up once in a great while, but you fight it off quickly. And pretty soon the flesh gives up and leaves you alone. But it'll try to do something else, because it needs flesh. The flesh needs sin to live. But you don't allow it to do it. You want to kill the flesh. Sometimes when we're unable to defend ourselves against the flesh and fight it off, Yahuwah will take over and he'll discipline that flesh for you. That's why sometimes people catch diseases. That's why sometimes people feel ill and have ailments. Sometimes things happen to us, makes us suffer, whatever it is. And so in that case, we should thank Yahuwah for helping us fight off the flesh, but yet ask him not to leave us in this place. Please remove me from this place, heal me, and let's continue on fighting the good fight together, Yahuwah. Sometimes he will take over and he'll discipline and punish that flesh if it's getting the best of you, if you're not strong enough to fight it off yourself. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. You're set apart from the flesh. He's not punishing your inner man. He's punishing the fleshly man that won't leave you alone. Okay? All right. So there you go. There's the process that leads up to set-apartness. And there's the three enemies that you have to deal with. Okay, that you're fighting, that are friends of the flesh. The flesh itself loves itself. The world and the devil and company. They're on the flesh's side. All right. There's confirmation of that in Ephesians. We can go to that really fast. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 2 and 3 says, Ephesians 2, 2 and 3, in which you once walked, I'll just go up to 1, and you were dead in trespasses and sins. You were dead. Your inner man was dead too. In which you once walked according to the course of this world. There it is, the world. According to the ruler of the authority of the air, the devil, your other enemy, of the mind that is now working in the sons of rebellion, among whom also all once lived in the lusts of the flesh, doing the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by disposition children of wrath, as also the rest, flesh. There you go. It mentions your three enemies right there again in Ephesians 2, 2 to 3. So here, Paul, who wrote Ephesians, this letter, lays out this tripod type enemy, if you will, the world, the devil, and your flesh. This is who you're fighting. This is who you are set apart from. This is who you are sealed and protected by the Ruach HaKodesh from. The world, the devil, and your flesh. Okay, so there's confirmation for those of you who like confirmation. All right, so go to 1 Peter 4, 1 through 11. I'm going to build on this, and we're going to really see it more clearly and more deeply, and hopefully we'll be able to get a really better understanding of all this and how this relates to when people say, I sin, I still sin every day. No, you do not. If you do, then you don't have the Ruach HaKodesh in you. You have not been born again. You have not entered into the everlasting covenant. So watch what you're saying. If you're telling people, well, we all sin, I sin every day. Guess what? You haven't been immersed with the Ruach HaKodesh, nor have you entered into the everlasting covenant if you're talking like that. No, you do not. Your outer man does, but your inner man don't. It's been set apart. You got to get that. Otherwise, you're going to walk around and you won't have a clear conscience. Look at 1 Peter 4, 1 through 11. Therefore, since Mashiach suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves also with the same mind as Yahusha. because he who has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin. You see that? So you suffered in the flesh, you're ceasing from sin, means that only your flesh is suffering, your inner man isn't suffering anymore. Like I said, Yahuwah will even cause your flesh to suffer to help beat it down and weaken it so that your inner man can take control of it and control what's going on with that flesh, because it's set apart and he doesn't want you to be around sin. Think about it. We're all around sin. We're saturated in sin. Sin's all around us. We're being tortured by sin every single day. Just having to hear it, see it. You know, it's horrific. It's something that's horrific in our life, in our struggles for life. Think about it. So that he no longer lives the rest of his time in the flesh for the lust of men, but according to the desire of Elohim. Okay, so here again, if you're not, you say, well, I sin every day. Well, no, you don't. Okay, you're powerless to sin unless you're not his, and then you sin every day. So this would apply to those who have not been reborn yet. Before your rebirth, you can say that. But after your rebirth and your immersion in the water and in the Ruach, born of water and spirit, you can no longer say that you sin every day. Your enemy sins every day, or at least strives to sin every day, but you do not. You do not intently, willingly, wantonly, or are you in agreement to doing sinning the way your flesh wants to? You're opposed to it, which means it's not you doing it. So this is like Lot. You know, he was stuck in Sodom. He was surrounded by sin, perversion, all kinds of stuff every day. This righteous man was tortured. He had to see this stuff and hear this stuff all about him every day. He was trapped in this sin, and it was horrific. He was being tormented, and his mind was being tormented with all this going on around him every single day. And it was horrifying. It was not a good place. The world is not a good place for someone who has been born again. So look at 2 Peter 2:8, and you'll see that. So 2 Peter 2:8 says, I probably should back up here a little bit. And having reduced to ashes the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, condemned them to destruction, having made them an example to those who afterward would live wickedly, and rescued righteous Lot, who was oppressed with the indecent behavior of the lawless. For day after day, that righteous man, dwelling among them, tortured his righteous being, his inner man, by seeing and hearing their lawless works. So he was dying daily by being tortured to death by the wrongs, lawless works, and his being desiring to be a lawful, righteous servant of Yahuwah was subjected to this day in and day out, being tortured, tormented. For we have spent enough of our past lifetime in doing the desire of the nations, having walked in indecencies, lusts, drunkenness, orgies, wild parties, and abominable idolatries, in which they are surprised that you do not run with them in the same flood of loose behavior. Blaspheming, who shall give an account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead. For this reason, the Besorah was also brought to those who are dead, so that whereas they are judged according to men in the flesh, they might live according to Elohim in the Ruach. But the end of all has drawn near, so be sober-minded and be attentive in the prayers. And above all, have fervent love for one another, because love covers a great number of sins. Welcome one another without grumbling. As each one has received a gift, serve one another as good guardians of the manifold favor of Elohim. If anyone speaks, let it be as the words of Elohim. If anyone serves, let it be as with the strength which Elohim provides, so that Elohim might be praised in it all through Yahushua Mashiach, to whom before belong the esteem and the rule forever and ever. Amen. Okay, so here we see that we need to stay apart from the world. These are the lusts of the world, lust of men, desires, and stick to the desires of Yahuwah, not men. Okay. And so the only way we can do this is being set apart from our flesh, set apart from this world, and set apart from the devil and his demons. See that? All right. So let's move on. Look at Matthew 10, 27 and 28. And you shall be hated by all for my name's sake. Wait a minute, I'm in the wrong place. Okay. Matthew 10, 27 and 28. What I say to you in the dark, speak in the light. And what you hear in the ear, proclaim on the housetops. And do not fear those who kill the body, but are unable to kill the being, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both being and body in Gehenna. So there it is. So this is proof that you can be set apart from your body, from your flesh. Otherwise, it wouldn't say that fear him who can destroy both body and being in Gehenna. Okay, so he can throw your body and your being in there, but he can also set your being apart from your flesh and keep it sealed for the day of redemption, keep it reserved for the day where he comes back and redeems it and gives us a new body to put that being in. See that? So it continues to speak of set-apartness. And so in order to understand that we don't sin every day, we're powerless to sin, we need to fully and truly understand the set-apartness command. And the only way we can get to understand that is to see your body of flesh, or the mind of the flesh, as being set apart from the treasured possession, which is the inner man, your being, your spirit, if you will, that is protected and sealed by the Ruach HaKodesh for the day of redemption. And it's protected to where it just sin cannot penetrate it. And so, therefore, you are powerless to sin because you were born again. You're a new creature now. You're no longer that old man before your water immersion that was running around collaborating with the flesh, the world, and the devil and committing sin. You're not doing it no more. You're opposed to it now because you're set apart. You're different now. You're born from above, born of Yahuwah. You're a son of your spiritual child, the son of Yahuwah, son of light. You see that? So why do you think you're still sinning? Because the flesh is still wanting to run around in this carbon copy world and sin. Matter of fact, it wants to eat sin so bad it can't stand itself, because that's how it survives. The bigger sinner, the more sin the flesh gets to do, the stronger the flesh is. And the more evil you become, and the more you don't care about hurting Yahuwah and hurting others. Okay, so now we're going to get into some reading, but I'm going to do some pausing here because I want, when it comes to a critical point that I want to elaborate on a little bit, I'm going to pause and elaborate a little bit. Try not to go off on any big tangents, but this is the heart of the matter here. This is the meat and potatoes of this subject matter here of set-apartness, and it's found in Romans 6, 7, and 8. So let's get into it. Romans 6. What then shall we say? Shall we continue in sin, to let favor increase? Let it not be. How shall we who died to sin still live in it? See, so you've died to sin. It means you paid the price. You no longer need to be living in sin, nor do you, because the Ruach will not allow it. Or do you not know that as many of us as were immersed into Mashiach Yahusha were immersed into his death? We were therefore buried with him through immersion into death, that as Mashiach was raised from the dead by the esteem of the Father, so also we should walk in newness of life. For if we have come to be grown together in the likeness of his death, we shall be also of the resurrection. Knowing this, that our old man, the sinner, our old man, was staked with him, so that the body of sin might be rendered powerless to serve sin no longer. For he who has died has been made right from sin. You paid the price. You're zero. You owe that. You owe zero. You paid the price in your death. Okay, so this is very, very clear here now, folks. Okay, your old man in your water immersion dies with Mashiach, staked with him, and you die and buried with him, and then you're reborn as a new creature in Yahuwah, a spiritual child of a spiritual father, and you've been born again and resurrected into life, to a new life, which is going to be sinless, a sin-proof existence. There won't be no sin there. None. This is very powerful passage right here. But notice it says, so that the body of sin might be rendered powerless to serve sin no longer. It won't serve sin any longer if you battle it. You got to battle that. And it's once that it dies, it's already died in the spiritual realm. Once it dies in this literal realm, fleshly realm, carbon copy world, and Yahuwah resurrects it and changes it in a blink of an eye into immortality, that body will never be able to sin again. It's powerless to sin at that point. Powerless. It's not going to be able to. So your new body, your immortal body, is going to be sin-proof. Sin-proof. Not able to. That's why it says, for he who has died has been made right from sin. Right? Because it's been removed because you paid the price in your death, your burial, and your resurrection, and the true pattern of Yahusha during the set-apart process that we went over in John Yehukanan 3:5. Okay, let's continue on. And if we died with Mashiach, which we did in our water immersion, we believe that we shall also live with him, knowing that Mashiach, having been raised from the dead, dies no more. Death no longer rules over him. For in that he died to sin once for all. But in that he lives to Yahuwah. So you also reckon yourselves to be dead indeed to sin. You can't sin, man. Stop telling people you sin every day, especially if you've been born again. You're really confusing people by saying that. But alive to Yahuwah and Mashiach, Yahusha, our master. See that? You're alive to Yahuwah and Mashiach, Yahusha, our master. Therefore, do not let sin reign in your mortal body. Fight it off. Refuse it. Deny it. Deny it what it wants. To obey in it in its desires. Yeah, don't obey it in what it wants to do. Deny it, man. Starve it to death. Either you do it or Yahuwah's going to do it. Neither present your members as instruments of unrighteousness to sin. See that? But present yourselves to Yahuwah as being alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness to Yahuwah. For sin shall not rule over you, for you are not under the law, but under favor. Which would be saying is the penalty prescribed by the law, which is death. So you are not under the law of death anymore, sin and death, but under favor through Yahushua HaMashiach's blood sacrifice, being born again. See what's that saying? But then, shall we sin because we are not under Torah, but under favor? Let it not be. So under favor here means subjected to the penalties of or accountable to its punishment. The crimes we committed are erased by the blood of Yahusha during our water immersion. We were born out of the water and the blood, just like a woman. We were born the first time, who paid for us and purchased us. Yeah, we were purchased by the blood of the Ruach HaKodesh. So he had to transform his body of light into a body of flesh in order to have blood to spill and to sacrifice. Do you not know that to whom you present yourselves servants for obedience, you are servants of the one whom you obey, whether of sin to death or of obedience to righteousness? Okay. Yeah. So if you're still sinning every day and you're serving death, death has authority over sin. So if you're sinning, you're serving death, giving it authority over you. So if you tell people, well, I'm still sinning every day, what you're saying is you're still serving sin and death. You've got to understand this set apart process, what we call the rebirth, being born from above. And you have to understand that and be able to articulate that to other people in order so they can easily understand. They say, oh, you sin every day. Everybody sins every day. I bet you got that bad thoughts in your mind. When you see a girl, you look at her more than once, that's a sin. You look at her once, that's natural. You look at her twice, that's a sin. And they try to make you feel bad, and all that is because you're still in this saturated, sinful existence, this fallen world. And just because we're here, we are surrounded by sin daily, like Lot was, and we're being tortured. We have to live among sin and death till Yahusha comes back. See that? So it's not that you're wantonly desiring to do these things. You're just a victim of the circumstances or a victim of the environment that you remain in until the second coming. All right. And if it's an overwhelming situation for us, because it's not, you have to look far and wide for good, but bad and wickedness and sin is all around us every day, right at our fingertips, within our eyes shot, and our ears shot, and so we suffer. And so the flesh is bound to get its way once in a great while, but that's not me sinning. That's the old man that continues to sin. But I'm not going to let him get away with that next time. Okay. Because you have to take control of that flesh, and you have to beat it up, keep it weak and beaten down by praying and talking to Yahuwah and praying to Yahuwah and worshiping and praising Yahuwah continuously, and keeping your nose in the word of truth, deep into it. You're reading scriptures, you're not thinking about sinning. Sin should be far, far, far from your mind. Okay. Why? Because the flesh weakens. The more you read the word of truth, the weaker and weaker and weaker it gets. It gets so weak that you'll hardly even notice it's around anymore. It's only when you get out away from the word of truth, you quit praying and worshiping and talking to Yahuwah, get out among all the sin and wickedness that's in this world and get your feet dirty, does the flesh have the ability to win a few battles here and there. Come back home, get yourself cleaned back up, and continue doing what you're supposed to be doing. You must endure to the end. Those who endure to the end will be delivered. But thanks to Yahuwah that you were servants of sin, yet you obeyed from the heart, that from that form of teaching to which you were entrusted. And having been set free from sin, you became servants of righteousness. See that? You're set free from sin. I speak as a man because of the weakness of your flesh. For even as you did present your members as servants of uncleanness and of lawlessness, resulting in lawlessness, so now present your bodies as servants of righteousness, resulting in set-apartness. So there it is, resulting in set-apartness. See that? So present your bodies as servants of righteousness rather than servants of sin and death. And so, in other words, your inner man uses the vessel, which is your fleshly body, to do good things, to help people, heal people, proclaim the Besorah to people, these type of things, to love people, express love through your emotions and stuff like that in your body, capabilities of your body. And then instead of going on committing sin and worshiping sin and death, you're using your body to do good things, so you become a servant of righteousness, resulting in set-apartness. Now, guess what? You get to where you're controlling your flesh to that point. Now your body and your being are set apart from the world and from the devil and his company. Very powerful stuff, man. Boy, if we could all get to that point in life, we'd be right where we need to be. So don't be subject to your flesh and serve sin and death. It worships death, man. Don't do that. Fight it all the way. Use your body instead of allowing it to run wild and be a servant of sin like it wants to be. Tame it, bridle it, throw a saddle on it, tell it what to do, where to go, which way to turn. Control that flesh, man, and You can use your body as a servant of righteousness instead of a servant of sin, and that will result in further set apartness. Then you don't even have to, you can get to the point where you're not losing any battles. Or once in a blue moon, you lose a battle to the flesh. But you can get to where you're not losing any more battles. You just keep trimming it down, controlling it, beating it into the ground. If you lose full control, Yahuwah's going to step in. And sometimes his discipline's harsh. He's harsh. He can cause pain and suffering in the body to get the body to submit to the desires of your inner man. So it's best you do it yourself. For when you were servants of sin, you were free from righteousness. What fruit, therefore, were you having then, over which you are now ashamed? For the end, therefore, is death. But now, having been set free from sin, and having become servants of Yahuwah, you have your fruit resulting in set-apartness, and the end, everlasting life. For the wages of sin is death, but the favorable gift of Yahuwah is everlasting life in Mashiach Yahusha, our Master. Wow, that's powerful stuff right there, folks. Mind blowing. So you have your fruit resulting in set apartness, not in evilness, not in evil works, but set apart works, good works. Okay, very good. Chapter 7, Romans chapter 7 now. Or do you not know, brothers, for I speak to those knowing the Torah, that the Torah rules over a man as long as he lives? For the married Asha has been bound by Torah to the living husband. But if her husband dies, she is released from the Torah concerning her husband. Not the entire Torah, but just the law concerning her husband dying. So then, while her husband lives, she shall be called an adulteress if she becomes another man's. But if her husband dies, she's free from that part of the Torah, so that she is not an adulteress having become another man's. So, my brothers, you also were put to death to the Torah through the body of Mashiach, for you to become another's, the one who was raised from the dead, that we should bear fruit to Yahuwah. For when we were living in the mind of the flesh, the passions of sins through the Torah were working in our bodies to bear fruit to death. But now we have been released from the Torah, having died to what we were held by, so that we should serve in newness of Ruach, born again, the spiritual child, and not in oldness of letter. So we live in the mind of the Ruach HaKodesh. We have the Torah written on our hearts, our inner parts, okay? We have actually become the letter, the walking Torah. We have become the letter at this point. That's what it's saying. It's not telling you you don't abolish it, the Torah, but you have become the letter. You have become the Torah. So be released from the Torah, that is the part that is prescribed the penalty and incurred the debt of death to be paid. But now we have been released from the Torah. It means the penalty of violating the law, which is death. We've been released from it. See that? Okay, so what then shall we say? Is the Torah sin? Let it not be. Of course it's not. Moreover, I did not know sin except through the Torah. For also the covetousness I knew not, if the Torah had not said, you shall not covet. But sin, having taken the occasion through the command, did work in me all sorts of covetousness. So in other words, the more Torah you know, the more laws you know, the more Torah you understand, the bigger sinner you are. So the Torah becomes a witness against you that you're a sinner, that you serve sin and death. All right. So, for apart from Torah, sin is dead. And I was alive apart from the Torah once, but when the command came, the sin revived and I died. You understood that you were a big sinner. And the command which was to result in life, this I found to result in death. For sin having taken, that means you thought the Torah was going to save you. Well, the result is death, because it proves it's a witness against you that you're a sinner. For sin having taken the occasion through the command, deceived me, and through it killed me. It became a bigger sinner once you understood what all the transgressions were. So that the Torah truly is set apart. So the Torah is also set apart. And the command set apart. And the command set apart, and righteous and good. Therefore, has that which is good become death to me? Let it not be. Of course not. But the sin, that sin might be manifest, was working death in me through what is good, so that sin through the command might become an exceedingly great sinner. See that? Exceedingly great sinner. There should be no doubt in your mind, if you know Torah, that you need to have a deliverer. You're in big trouble. For we know that the Torah is ruach-like, spirit-like. It's part of the spiritual dimension. Why? Because it's the living words of Yahuwah. Spiritual, life-giving breath. But I am fleshly, sold under sin. So the Torah is ruach-like, but I am fleshly, sold under sin. For what I work, I know not. For what I wish, that I do not practice, but what I hate, that I do. But if I do what I do not wish, I agree with the Torah that it is good. And now, because the flesh desires sin, that's why. And if you don't desire it, then you have to agree with Torah that it's good, because flesh doesn't desire what's good. It only desires what's evil, what's sin. It wants to eat the sin. And now it is no longer I that work it, but the sin dwelling in me. Oh, see that? And now it is no longer I that work it, but the sin dwelling in me. For I know that in me, that is my flesh, dwells no good. For to wish is present with me, but to work the good I do not find. For the good that I wish to do, I do not do. But the evil I do not wish to do, that I practice. If you're still in the mind of the flesh, you haven't been reborn yet. If all this is going on, this is before the set apart process, or before your conversion into the spiritual realm, leaving the fleshly dimension into the spiritual dimension. It's before, or you're still in the mind of the flesh. And if I do that which I do not wish, it is no longer I who work it, but the sin dwelling in me. I find therefore this law, that when I wish to do the good, that the evil is present with me. For I delight in the Torah of Yahuwah, according to the inward man, your being, your spirit, your ruach. But I see another law in my body battling against the Torah of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin which is in my body. Wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this body of death? This is before your conversion, people. This is before you know Yahuwah. This is before your rebirth, being born from above. Thanks to Yahuwah, through Yahushua Mashiach, our master. So then with the mind, I myself truly serve the Torah of Yahuwah, but with the flesh, the law of sin. Okay, so there you go. That's why you have to have a set-apartness. Because once you're set apart, then your inner being can truly serve the Torah of Yahuwah. But the flesh continues to serve the law of sin and death. Okay, but you take charge and you deny it what it wants. And like I said, bridle it, strap it, blanket it, saddle it, and make it do what you want it to do. All right, so that's pretty much telling you that while you're still in the mind of the flesh, you haven't went through the separation process. You are not in the everlasting covenant. You not know you have not been born from above. This is what's going on with your body. Okay, it wants to do bad things. It wants to serve sin. Even if your inner man says, no, I want to do good, the flesh is so powerful before your conversion that the inner man struggles greatly with trying to control it or get his way. He's very weak at that point, very weak. But after the set apart process happens, and you get immersed with the Ruach through the righteousness of Yahuwah, through his righteousness, through his strength, he empowers your inner man, and you get to turn the table, flip the coin, and start taking over and controlling the flesh, so that you no longer have to serve sin and death through the flesh anymore. You see what I mean? And as you work at it, it'll become less and less and less of a struggle and less of a battle. And you can even get to the point, like I said, where you're in total control. Even your body is set apart from the world and from the devil. You can reach that point. If you work at it long enough and hard enough at it, if you're determined and persistent, you'll get there. Can't be weak. Like I said, if you're weak, cowardly, weak, Yahuwah will take over. He ain't going to give up that cleaned up inner man easily. He's going to seal for day of redemption. He's got plans for you. And he's not going to give that back easily. Okay? And he will take charge of your body. So watch out. It's best to do it yourself. All right, so now let's look at Romans 8. See, before the conversion, as this was speaking a lot about here in chapter 7, you were a sinner, and you were sinning every day, and you were having a hard time not, because the flesh was in control. That's why. And when the flesh is in control, guess who he's partnered up with against your inner being? The world and the devil and his company. And your flesh is all teaming up against your inner man. That's why your inner man's weak. And you continue to sin every day before your conversion. But once you get converted and you're born again from above, the Ruach, you get immersed with the Ruach, bam, they start scrambling. Uh-oh, he got the Ruach. Let's get out of here. They know they ain't got a chance against the Ruach HaKodesh. That's why you don't have to sin no more. Just battle your flesh and beat it up till you got it in total control of it. Take total control over that fleshly body. and watch all your struggles for life start diminishing. Let's look at Romans 8. There is then now no condemnation to those who are in Mashiach Yahusha, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Ruach. See that? For the Torah of the Ruach of the life in Mashiach Yahusha has set me free from the law of sin and of death. There it is. I mean, plain as the nose on your face, man. Everything we've been saying up to this point is written right there in them first two verses, chapter 8. Will you command your ears to be open so you can hear them? Will you command your eyes to be open so that you can see? For the Torah being powerless, and that it was weak over the flesh, it couldn't clean the flesh up. It couldn't deliver the flesh. It could only be a witness against the flesh that it is a big, big sinner. Yahuwah, having his own son in the likeness of flesh, of sin, and concerning sin, condemned sin in the flesh. So he broke the power of death, which was sin, so that the righteousness of the Torah should be completed in us, who do not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Ruach. And we don't allow the flesh to have its way, people. We do not. We fight it every step of the way. It's not that hard. There should be no struggle. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on the matters of the flesh. But those who live according to the Ruach, the matters of the Ruach. For the mind of the flesh is death, but the mind of the Ruach is life and peace. Peace. You don't have to battle with that flesh anymore, man. You've overtaken it. You've overtaken your flesh. You have beaten it down into the dust where it came from. You set yourself apart from your flesh. And now Yahuwah gives you his peace. And once that happens, folks, don't ever give your peace up to anybody. Do not let anyone steal your peace. It's a blessing and a gift from Yahuwah for your accomplishments of winning the war against your flesh. The second you do something wrong, say you say a bad word, or you lash out at somebody, or anything silly, right away, if your mind rejects it and you despise that you did that, or you're sorrowful and remorseful that you said that or did that, immediately, you know that wasn't you doing that. That was the flesh, because you wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for the flesh, the weakness of that flesh. It wouldn't have happened. You see, and you feel it immediately. Those that are in the flesh, they don't feel that immediately. They do something wrong, they sin, do something they shouldn't do. They don't feel any remorseful or sorrowful for it. They just, sometimes they'll even heighten it. They'll double down on it, and get worse because the flesh is liking it. That's how you can tell that you didn't commit that sin. That was the flesh, because immediately you're sorrowful and remorseful for saying it or doing it. It should be an immediate response. So because the mind of the flesh is hatred towards Yahuwah, for it does not subject itself to the Torah of Yahuwah, neither indeed is it able. So if you can't find yourself being obedient, you're in the mind of the flesh, man. Because you're not able to. You got to set yourself apart. You can't continue to walk hand in hand, hip to hip, collaborating with your flesh and think you're going to be able to achieve set-apartness or not serving sin and death anymore. You're not going to be able to. You're stuck with the flesh, collaborating with the flesh, man. That means you're in just as much trouble as that flesh when it sins. And he's going to throw your body and your being into Gehenna. This is all about separation, folks, being set apart from the flesh and receiving a new immortal body so that you don't get thrown in Gehenna. People that remain in the flesh their entire life and never, ever are born again and continue to just serve sin and death their entire life, well, their being don't even have a chance. You can't save your being once you die. It's going to be thrown together because it's one with your body in Gehenna, and you're going to suffer the second death. The only way to save yourself from the second death or Gehenna is to separate yourself from your flesh. Become separate from it, okay, and sealed, protected by Yahuwah, and get a new body. Then you won't be thrown into Gehenna. Your old body will be raised up if you've died, fell asleep, and will be put back together. Bones and everything will be resurrected, and your body will come back together, but changed immediately in the blink of an eye, or immediately into immortality. And I think he does that so that we're going to look like we do now, so that we'll be recognizable. We'll all still have our personal identity that we can recognize in a body form. You know, I think that's why he's doing that. But of course, who knows the mind of Yahuwah, right? Okay, so and those who are in the flesh are unable to please Yahuwah. But you are not in the flesh. Have you been born again? But if you are not in the flesh, but in the Ruach. You're living in the Ruach. He has you sealed for the day of redemption. You're no longer living in that body of flesh, collaborating with it and chasing after and serving sin and death. You've set yourself apart. And now you are in the Ruach, which is in you. If indeed the Ruach of Yahuwah dwells in you, see that? So there you go. See what I'm saying now? But if you are not in the flesh, but in the Ruach, if indeed the Ruach of Yahuwah dwells in you. So if the Ruach HaKodesh is indwelling your vessel, then you, your inner man, is the new creature, is indwelling in the Ruach, inside the Ruach, inside of your, who's inside of you. You see that? And protecting you. And if anyone does not have the Ruach of Mashiach, this one is not his. So if you have not been immersed in the Ruach HaKodesh, you're not his. You're still in. If you sin every day and go around telling people, I sin every day, nobody's perfect, we're all sinners, all fall short of the glory, you're still in the mind of the flesh. You have not converted yet. You have not set yourself apart yet. You have not entered into the renewed covenant yet. You have not been immersed with the Ruach HaKodesh yet. You're talking like that. So you're not his. And if Mashiach is in you, the body is truly dead on account of sin, But the Ruach is life on account of righteousness. What's righteousness? It's the Ruach of Yahusha living in you. That's what it is. So if Mashiach is in you, your body is dead on account of sin, even though he's living in you and you're in him, right? As it just told us. But the body is just still dead on account of the sin. It's already been convicted, judged, and tried and judged to die. It's already been sentenced to death. But the Ruach is life on account of righteousness. Your Ruach is life on account of Yahuwah's righteousness, Yahusha's righteousness in you. Not on account of your righteousness, but on account of his righteousness in you, because he's living in you and you're living in him. And if the Ruach of him who raised Yahusha from the dead dwells in you, he who also raised Mashiach from the dead shall also give life to your mortal bodies. See that? Your mortal body that went back to dust. Through his Ruach dwelling in you. So his Ruach dwelling in your mortal body, shall also give life to your mortal body. Okay? Through his Ruach that's indwelling you and has your inner man sealed for the day of redemption. So that mortal body is going to be raised up again and changed immediately into an immortal body if you die. So then, brothers, we are not debtors to the flesh to live according to the flesh. For if you live according to the flesh, you are going to die. But if by the Ruach you put to death the deeds of the body, you shall live. See that? So if you continue to fight the battle and to deny the flesh what it wants, which is sin, you put to death of those deeds of the body, then you shall live. So clean your body up. Do your best to get that body cleaned up and not allow it to sin anymore. Keep it beaten down. Get control of that flesh. Harness that flesh. Control that flesh. Beat that flesh up. For as many as are led by the Ruach of Yahuwah, these are sons of Yahuwah. See that? For you did not receive the Ruach of bondage again to fear, but you received the Ruach of adoption by whom we cry out, Abba, Father. The Ruach himself bears witness with our Ruach that we are children of Yahuwah, because it's living with our Ruach. And of children also heirs, truly heirs of Yahuwah, and co-heirs with Mashiach, if indeed we suffer with him, in order that we also be exalted together. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the esteem that is to be revealed in us. For the intense longing of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of Yahuwah. Intense longing of the creation. That means everything. It's the world, plants, fish, animals, everything. Trees. Eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of Yahuwah, the election. Because once that's revealed, who they are, Yahusha coming back, going into the millennium reign, right? For the creation was subjected to futility, not from choice, but because of him who subjected it, in anticipation that the creation itself also shall be delivered from the bondage to corruption, death. It's death. So speaking of the animals and the trees and the plants and everything, the fish and the birds, and to the esteemed freedom of the children of Yahuwah. They're going to be delivered right along with us because they didn't sin. They were just subjected to this world because of what we did. We being the rulers are put in charge of them. So they have to suffer our fate. They're just a victim of circumstances. They're guilty because of association with humans. That's why Yahuwah subjected them. Understand that, and that's very powerful stuff. For we know that all the creation groans together and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now. And not only so, but even we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Ruach, that's the election, the bride, we ourselves also groan within ourselves, eagerly waiting for the adoption, the redemption of our body. Which would be the body of Yahusha. For in this hope we were delivered, but hope that is seen is not hope. For when anyone sees, does he expect it? But if we expect what we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with endurance. And in the same way, the Ruach does help in our weaknesses. For if we do not know what we should pray, but the Ruach himself pleads our case for us with groanings unutterable. And he who searches the hearts knows what the mind of the Ruach is, because he makes intercession for the set-apart ones according to Yahuwah. And we know that all things work together for good to those who love Yahuwah, to those who are called according to his purpose. Because those whom he knew beforehand, he also established beforehand, to be conformed to the likeness of his Son, for him to be the firstborn among many brothers. And whom he established beforehand, these he also called, and whom he called, these he also declared right. And whom he declared right, these he also esteemed. What then shall we say to this? If Yahuwah is for us, who is against us? Truly, he who did not spare his own Son, but delivered him up on behalf of us all, how shall he not, along with him, freely give us all else? Who shall bring any charge against Yahuwah's chosen ones? It is Yahuwah who is declaring right. Okay, so this is so powerful. You go out and tell people you sin every day. If you're a sinner, you sin every day. Everybody does. Blah, blah, blah. We've all heard that going around. Sounds like to me you're telling you bringing charges against Yahuwah for choosing you, or even others. Like, oh, I'm still sinning. I don't know what Yahuwah's doing, but I'm still a sinner. I hope he forgives me every time I sin. Maybe he'll come back down and sacrifice himself again for me. Yeah, you're fooling yourself. You need to stop talking about that and get serious about knowing Yahuwah and pursuing to know Yahuwah. And really pursuing to understand the set-apart command and what it's all about. And what you're supposed to be doing. Not just sitting around saying, oh, I went and jumped in the bathtub and ducked my head under, and now I don't know, man. I don't feel nothing different, but I still sin every day. I don't know what's going on, man. Well, maybe you need to start reading scripture and praying and trying to find out what's going on. Because obviously did something wrong. Who is he who is condemning? It is Mashiach who died, and furthermore is also raised up, who is also at the right hand of Yahuwah, who also makes intercession for us. Who shall separate us from the love of the Mashiach? Shall pressure, or distress, or persecution, or scarcity of food, or nakedness, or danger, or sword? As it has been written, for your sake we are killed all yom long. We are reckoned as sheep of the slaughter. But in all this we are more than overcomers through him who loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor messengers, nor principalities, nor powers, neither the present nor the future, nor height nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of Yahuwah, which is in Mashiach Yahusha, our Master. Wow. Okay, so there you go, man. Reread that if you get a chance. You're not quite still not understanding, you're still struggling. Read it. You got to understand the set apart command. What happens, what's going on, and what you're supposed to be doing once you're set apart from your flesh, from the world, and from the devil and his company of demons. Take control of that flesh. That's what. It's no longer your boss. Okay? You no longer have to serve that flesh. Feed it, water it, talk to it, wash it, caress it, do what it wants. This type of stuff. You're not its slave anymore. You're set apart from it. It is now becomes your slave. It does your bidding. Your job is to clean it up as clean as possible. Be a good housekeeper. Clean it up, and clean it some more until it's sparkling inside and out. It's clean. You've taken control. And it serves you now. And it's a vessel of the works for good, not works for evil or sin. Go to Romans 12:1. I call upon you, therefore, brothers, through the compassion of Yahuwah, to present your bodies a living offering, set apart, well-pleasing to Yahuwah, your reasonable worship. See that? So there you go. Set your body apart, control it, clean it up. Use it for good works, not for sin and evil works, but good works. Use it to serve righteousness and good, not sin and evil. It's like having a horse. If you just throw it out in the pasture and let it run wild and never do nothing with it, it's going to be wild. It's going to do what it wants to do. But if you catch it and you train it and you work with it, you bridle it, you harness it, put a blanket on it, put a saddle on it, teach it, train it, pretty soon you're on it riding it and you're telling it what to do. Turn left, turn right, go backwards, go forward, run, trot, stop, whatever you want it to do. And it listens. It's the same thing with your body. You have to put the training into it. You have to put effort into it. You have to work with it. You have to train it and control it, dominate it. And make it yours. Make it a servant of righteousness. To serve righteousness, not to serve sin and death. It's that simple. You're in control now. Your inner being, who is sealed for the day of redemption, gets to make the body reverse course and make the body serve you, not you serve the body. You serving the body, I guarantee you, you're going to be a servant of sin and death because that's what the body wants to do. This is set apartness, folks. Only if you're set apart can you reverse the table on your body and take command and have it serve you and serve good. If you don't set yourself apart from it, you can't do that. The flesh is too powerful. There's too much sin in the world. It's everywhere you go, everywhere, everything you see, everything you hear, everything you taste, everything you smell. It's everywhere, everything you touch. You can't hide from sin here in this world. Only if you set yourself apart can you control your flesh, control this world, and control the devil and his demons. Through the righteousness and the strength of Yahuwah, who dwells you. That's the ultimate set apart right there. You get immersed with the Ruach HaKodesh, and he comes in there and into your body, and he seals and protects your inner man, your inner being, right? He's got you totally set apart from the flesh. Because now, instead of being your inner man being in your flesh, it's in the Ruach. We read that a few chapters back. Now you're in the Ruach. No longer in the flesh. So you're totally set apart. That's the ultimate set apartness right there. Romans 13, folks. Romans 13, 11 through 14 says, well, let's back up to 8. Romans 13, 8 to the end there. Owe no one anything except to love one another. For he who loves another has performed the Torah. For this, you shall not break wedlock, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not covet. And if there is any other command is summed up in this word, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no evil to a neighbor, therefore love is completion of the Torah. And do this, knowing the time, that it is already the hour for us to wake up from sleep. For now, our deliverance is nearer than when we did believe. The night is far advanced, the day has come near. Let us put off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. Let us walk becomingly, as in the Yom, not in wild parties and drunkenness, not in living together in indecencies, not in fighting and envy, but put on the Master Yahushua Mashiach, and make no provision for the lusts of the flesh. See that? Make no provisions for the lusts of the flesh. So you clothe yourself with Mashiach, put on Mashiach, and make no provision for the lust of the flesh. Put on the armor of light, which is Yahusha. Become a child of light. Okay, the flesh is powerless against a child of light. Powerless, man. You put on Mashiach, like you're clothing yourself with Mashiach, that flesh is in big trouble now. Why? Because you got the Ruach HaKodesh in you, and your inner beings in it, being set apart from the flesh. And now you clothed with the Master Yahusha over your fleshly body on the outside. That flesh is suffocating. It's suffocating now. It's in Mashiach, clothed with Mashiach, and then the indwelling spirit of Mashiach in you is suffocating that flesh. It can't hardly stand up when you do that. You become a child of light. That's extremely powerful stuff right there. Look at 1 Corinthians 2, 1 Corinthians 2, 12 through 16 says, "And we have received not the Ruach of the world, but the Ruach that is from Yahuwah, in order to know what Yahuwah has favorably given us, which we also speak, not in words which man's wisdom teaches, but which the Ruach HaKodesh teaches, comparing Ruach-like things with Ruach-like things. But the worldly man does not receive the things of the Ruach of Yahuwah, for they are foolishness to him, and he is unable to know them because they are abstractly discerned. But he who is Ruach-like discerns indeed all things, but he himself is discerned by no one. For who has known the mind of Yahuwah? Who shall instruct him? But we have the mind of Mashiach." Wow. Look at 1 Corinthians 3:16. "Do you not know that you are a temple or Mishkan of Yahuwah, and that the Ruach of Yahuwah indwells you?" Wow. Look at 1 Corinthians 6, 9:20. Look, if you got the Ruach HaKodesh indwelling you, how can you run around and tell people that you continue to sin every day? I sin every day. I always sin. Everybody sins. It says if you deny that you're a sin or you're a liar, before the conversion, yeah. After you've been born again, born from above, no, it's not talking about you anymore. Look at 1 Corinthians 6, 9 through 20, especially the last two verses, 19 and 20. But 6, 9 through 20. "Do you not know that the uprightness shall not, the unrighteous, do you not know that the unrighteous shall not inherit the reign of Yahuwah? Do not be deceived, neither those who whore, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor homosexuals, nor thieves, nor greedy of gain, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers shall inherit the reign of Yahuwah. And such were some of you, but you were washed, but you were set apart, but you were declared right in the name of Master Yahushua and by the Ruach of our Yahuwah." See that? So yeah, maybe you were used to do that stuff, but now you're not, because you were declared right. You were set apart. You were washed, set apart, and declared right in the name of Yahushua. So you can't keep going around telling people you still sin unless you're still in the flesh. Then you're saying right. But if you think that you're Nazarene, or you think you're in the everlasting covenant, you shouldn't be going around telling people you sin every day. I still sin every day. "All is permitted me, but not all do profit. All is permitted me, but I shall not be under authority of any. Foods for the stomach, and the stomach for foods, but Yahuwah shall destroy both it and them. And the body is not for whoring, but for the master, and the master for the body. And Yahuwah, who raised up the master, shall also raise us up through his power. Do you not know that your bodies are components of Mashiach? Shall I then take the components of Mashiach and make them components of a whore? Let it not be. Or do you not know that he who is joined to a whore is one body? For he says, the two shall become one flesh. And he who is joined to the master is one ruach. Flee whoring. Every sin that a man does is outside the body, but he who commits whoring sins against his own body. Or do you not know that your body is the temple of the Ruach HaKodesh, who is in you, which you have from Yahuwah, and you are not your own? For you were bought with a price. Therefore esteem Yahuwah in your body and in your Ruach, which are of Yahuwah. So there you go. It's pretty clear, man. You know, it's the temple of Yahuwah now. It's Yahuwah's body. It's Yahusha's body now. And you're bought with a price. The highest price paid, possibly paid, is the blood of the Ruach HaKodesh. That's what you were bought with. That's over in Acts 20:28. If you want to go there, we'll look at it real fast. For those of you who do not know this, Acts 20:28 says, therefore take heed to yourselves and to all the flock, among which the Ruach HaKodesh has made you overseers, to shepherd the assembly of Elohim, which he has purchased with his own blood. So there you go. It's very clear. Ruach HaKodesh purchased us with his own blood. So do you think he's going to easily give you up? He's purchased you with his own blood, the highest possible price that anyone could pay, he paid. And now he's got you sealed for the day of redemption. He's got you cleaned up. You're blameless, spotless, no stain, no spots, no wrinkles. You've been returned to virgin status. You're just waiting for your mortal body. Is he going to give you up easily? No. That's why he's got you sealed. Okay, so when that body, if you lose a battle to your body and it sins, he's not going to leave you and say give you back to your body and say, oh, okay, you win, you sinned. No. He's going to sit there and then he's going to wait for you to take action against your body and keep it from sinning, do the things that you were taught to do, that you know to do, to keep that flesh weak and under your control. And if you can't do it, he's going to step in and do it. His discipline is going to be much, much harsher than yours. You're expected to keep control of that flesh. You've been empowered to do so by the Ruach HaKodesh, and his righteousness in you surpasses all evil, sin, and powers of darkness and all that. They can't hold up to it. They just can't. You've got control. So utilize what you've been given. You've been empowered by the Ruach HaKodesh to control your flesh, to overcome your enemies, which is the world, your flesh, and the devil. Look at 1 Corinthians 15, 50 through 58. And this I say, brothers, that flesh and blood is unable to inherit the reign of Yahuwah, neither does corruption inherit incorruption. So there you go. Flesh and blood has been judged and sentenced. It's found guilty, and it will return to dust. It will not be in the reign of Yahuwah. It'll be gone. No such thing as flesh and blood anymore. See, I speak a secret to you. Now, listen up. Here comes a secret. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible has to put on incorruption, and this mortal to put on immortality. And when this corruptible has put on incorruption, and this mortal has put on immortality, then shall come to be the word that has been written. Death is swallowed up in overcoming. O death, where is your sting? Grave, where is your overcoming? And the sting of death is the sin, and the power of the sin is the Torah. But thanks to Yahuwah, who gives us the overcoming through our master Yahushua Mashiach. Therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always excelling in the work of the master, knowing that your labor is not in vain in the master. So there you go. You labor to control that flesh and to make it work good, work for the good, is not in vain. Second Corinthians 3, 1 through 6. Are we to begin to recommend ourselves again, or do we need, as some, letters of recommendation to you or from you? You are our letter, having been written in our hearts, known and read by all men, making it obvious that you are a letter of Mashiach, served by us, written not with ink, but by the Ruach of the loving Yahuwah, not on tablets of stone, but on fleshly tablets of the heart. And such trust we have toward Yahuwah through the Mashiach. Not that we are competent in ourselves to reckon any things as from ourselves, but our competence is from Yahuwah, who also made us competent as servants of a renewed covenant, not of the letter, but of the Ruach. For the letter kills, but the Ruach gives life. Wow. Okay, so the letter is a witness against you that you're a sinner and it kills. You don't put you to death because it's proof that you're a sinner. But here we become the letter. So we become the walking Torah. We are the walking letter. And up here is the type was tablets of stone, but on fleshly tablets of the heart is written the second covenant, or the renewed covenant is written on our hearts. And so we have become the covenant, and we carry the instructions of Yahuwah on how to love in us. And we love Yahuwah and we love others, right? And so we have become the Ark of the Covenant. We have become the tabernacle. We have become the walking Torah. Therefore, we don't sin. We're powerless to sin, man. How can we? We don't. If your old man's still sinning, it's because you're letting it. You're yielding to its strength. You're yielding to its demands, and you're allowing it to do what it wants to do. Because maybe just a little bit part of you says, I kind of miss doing that, being that way. If that's true, boy, you better be getting on them knees, getting down in that dust and ashes. You need to clean that up. Yep. Take control. Look at 2 Corinthians 4, 16 and 18, 16 through 18. Especially verse 18 there. 2 Corinthians 4, 16 through 18 says, Therefore we do not lose heart, but even if our outward man, the flesh, is perishing, it's perishing day by day. The inward man is being renewed day by day. So the older man dying day by day, getting older and weaker, more decrepit and aged. But the new man is being renewed, being refreshed day by day, getting stronger, younger. Because it's in Yahuwah, which is everlasting life. So it's breathing everlasting life, man. It's in there dwelling in everlasting life, getting stronger day by day. So don't let that flesh do that to you, man. Don't go along with the flesh and go for that death ride. Resist it. Resist that flesh. For this slight momentary pressure is working for us a far more exceeding and everlasting weight of esteem. We are not looking on what is seen, but on what is not seen. For what is seen passes away, but what is not seen is everlasting life. So there you go. Your spirit is dying. The spirit is not dying day by day. The flesh is. In our mind, we are still young. That's because that's the inward man. Don't you still feel young in your mind, but your body's not cooperating with I still feel in my mind, I'm still like 35, but my body's all messed up, right? It's because the inward man's being renewed day by day. You start feeling younger and younger in the mind, but that body, is dying. So we're looking on what is seen, but on what is not seen, which is the Ruach, right? For what is seen passes away. That body is going to die. But what is not seen is everlasting, because your spirit, your inner man, is indwelling the Ruach, which is everlasting life. So it's breathing everlasting life, getting stronger by the day, man. You don't want that flesh to mess you up. You're on the journey to life, not to death. You're on a separate path as that fleshly body is now. You're on the path to life and everlasting life, not death. So the inner man is not seen, which is everlasting life. That's what's getting everlasting life. But you will get an immortal body. Don't worry. Look at 2 Corinthians 5, 14 through 21. For the love of Mashiach compels us, having judged this, that if one died for all, then all died. He paid the price, man. We're even with the house now. And he died for all, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised. So from now on, if you're born again, we recognize nobody according to their flesh. And if we have known Mashiach according to the flesh, yet now we no longer know him thus. If you knew Yahushua when you walked in the flesh, you're not even allowed to know him in the flesh anymore either. So you're not allowed to know anybody according to their flesh. Why? Because it's not them. It's not them anymore. You've been set apart from that flesh. It has nothing to do with you. There's no connection at all to your flesh anymore if you've been set apart. Therefore, if anyone is in Mashiach, he is a renewed creature. You're a renewed creature. The old things have passed away. See, all things have become new. You're born from above, new birth. You're a new creature. You're no longer that fleshly, old fleshly man that is a servant to sin and death. And all things are from Yahuwah, who has restored us to favor with himself through Yahushua Mashiach, and has given us the service of restoration to favor. That is, that Yahuwah was in Mashiach, There you go. Yahuwah was in Mashiach, restoring the world to favor to himself, not reckoning their trespasses to them, and has committed to us the word of restoration to favor. Therefore, we are envoys on behalf of Mashiach, as though Yahuwah were pleading through us. We beg on behalf of Mashiach, be restored to favor with Yahuwah, for he made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of Yahuwah. Wow. Yeah, verse 17 is mind-blowing, isn't it? Therefore, if anyone is in Mashiach, he is a renewed creature. The old things have passed away. See, all things have become renewed. Powerful, man. Powerful stuff. No longer the same person, so don't expect to do the same things that you used to do. It's a whole new ballgame for you. 2 Corinthians 6, 14 through 18. Do not become unevenly yoked with unbelievers, for what partnership have righteousness and lawlessness? And what fellowship has light with darkness? So there you go. Don't have fellowship with people that aren't born again, basically, in the everlasting covenant. And what agreement has Mashiach with Belial, wickedness? Or what part does a believer have with an unbeliever? And what union has the temple of Yahuwah with idols? For you are a temple of the living Yahuwah. Yeah, is that sinking in here? You are the Mishkan of the living Yahuwah. Yeah, there's no idols, there's no sins, there's no untruth, there's nothing left. That's it, man. Yahuwah's indwelling your body. Your body has become Yahusha's body, and you're indwelling him. You're in him, who's in you. As Yahuwah has said, I shall dwell in them and walk among them, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Therefore, come out from among them and be separate, says Yahuwah. There's a set-apart command right there. Up front, close, right in your face. Set-apart command. Therefore, come out from among them and be separate, says Yahuwah. And do not touch what is unclean. And I shall receive you, and I shall be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, says Yahuwah al Shaddai. So you'll be born from above. So what's he saying here? He's telling you to be set apart. He's giving you a set apart command, and then don't touch anything or do anything that's unclean, and I'll receive you, and I'll come in and live with you, and I'm going to change your life forever. You're going to live in the everlasting life. Be born from above. Be a spiritual child of light, not of darkness, not of the flesh, not of dust. Look at 2 Corinthians 7:1. Having then these promises, beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all defilement of the flesh and ruach, perfecting set-apartness in the fear of Yahuwah. So not only is it a command to be set apart, he wants you to perfect your set-apartness in the fear of Yahuwah, because he can destroy both body and ruach in Gehenna. So perfect your set-apartness in the fear of Yahuwah, meaning that you get that body so clean and keeping it cleaned up and keeping it from, you beat it down to nothing, to where you have full control. It's a dead, broke body, man. It doesn't even have any more desires. You've beating it down so low. It does exactly what you say when you say to do it. Basically doesn't even have a mind of its own anymore, right? You've perfected it. You're ruling over it. You have taken control of it to the point where it's even set apart. Even your body set apart from the world and the devil and his minions. Wow, that's perfecting set apartness, isn't it? And do it in fear of Yahuwah, because he can destroy both body and spirit in Gehenna. Wow. Wow. I hope people are starting to see this now, how we set apart the flesh and the spirit, and we're not the flesh no longer, but we're spirit now. We're no longer of the flesh, but of the Ruach. See that? The flesh, the world, and the devil are partners against your inner man. They're the enemy of your inner man. We got to take the flesh out of the equation, totally dominate our flesh, control it to the point where it's even set apart to Yahuwah, in fear of Yahuwah. Galatians 5. Actually, let's go to Galatians 4. Galatians 4:22 to 31. For it has been written that Abraham had two sons, one by a female servant, the other of a free Asha. But he who was of the female servant was born according to the flesh, and he of the free Asha through promise. This is allegorical, for these are the two covenants, one indeed from Mount Sinai, which brings forth slavery, which is Hagar. For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to Jerusalem, which now is and is in slavery with her children. But the Jerusalem above is free, which is the mother of us all. For it has been written, rejoice, barren, you who do not bear, break forth and shout, you who do not have birth pains, for the deserted one has many more children than she who has a husband. And we, brothers, as Yitzchak was, are children of promise. But as he who was born according to the flesh, then persecuted him born according to the Ruach, so also now. But what does the writing say? Cast out the female servant and her son. For the son of the female servant shall by no means be heir of the son of the free Asha. Therefore, brothers, we are not children of the female servant, but of the free Asha. And what this is saying is simply this. We're not children of the flesh anymore. We've been chosen and appointed to everlasting life by Yahuwah. We have went through this set apart process. We have entered into the everlasting covenant. We are now children of the free Asha. We are the spiritual children, the mind of the flesh. We are now children of light. We are born from above, born of Yahuwah. Children of light, spiritual children, because we have a spiritual father. Okay, this is what this is saying. So we are the children of Jerusalem, the free Asha, not the children of flesh, the slavery, born into sin, slavery, which serves sin and death, is a slave to sin and death. We're not them. See that? The first covenant or the old covenant that was written on stone. It was a burden, and it had no power. It's going to lead you to death. You're still going to be a slave to sin and death. But the renewed covenant set you free. Yahushua sets you free. And through that renewed covenant, we become spiritual children and are set free and unto everlasting life through the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach. The old covenant was the blood of animals, which was a dud. It didn't work. It was a misfire. Okay, look at Galatians 5:13 through 26. For you, brothers, have been called to freedom. Only do not use freedom as an occasion for the flesh. Yeah, just because you're free, don't go back serving the flesh once in a while. Yeah, I think I can get away with smoking a joint once in a while, or going out to the bar and checking out some chicks and getting tipsy once in a while. Probably ain't going to hurt nothing. Do not use your freedom as an occasion for the flesh. Don't use that. Don't serve the flesh at all. Ever give in to the flesh. Not even the slightest amount. Never, ever give in to that flesh. It's not part of you. It doesn't control you. You don't serve it. It serves you. You're set apart from that flesh. It's not you anymore. Got to get that. That's not your fleshy body is not you. Well, you're going to listen to it. But through love, serve one another. So you're getting freedom from sin and death, freedom from traditions, freedom from superstitions, freedom from idolatry, freedom from everything the flesh desires to do, which is always against Yahuwah. Not freedom to occasionally give into the flesh and go have some fun once in a great while. Oh, what's that going to hurt if I drink a couple beers and smoke a joint and pop a couple pills? It's nothing like what I used to do. At least I'm better than I was. Yeah. You're willingly, wantonly, and deliberately going along with the flesh and sinning, which means you're collaborating with the enemy, which means the penalty for collaborating with the enemy during warfare is death by execution. So don't do it. Period. Not even the slightest. Be strong. Be courageous. Be a warrior for Yahuwah. Okay, so let's look over here at, let me see, where are we? 5:13 to 26. Okay. For the entire Torah is completed in one word. In this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And if you bite and devour one another, beware lest you be consumed by one another. And I say, walk in the Ruach, and you shall not accomplish the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusts against the Ruach, and the Ruach against the flesh. And these are opposed to each other, so that you do not do what you desire to do. But if you are led by the Ruach, you are not under Torah. Okay, we've seen this here. The Ruach's against the flesh, and the flesh is against the Ruach, and they're opposed to each other. That shows you that they are their set-apartness is real. They can be set apart. Set-apartness is real. If they're opposed to each other, see what I'm saying? So you can see, oh, you can't separate my inner being from my flesh. We're the same person. No, they're opposed. It just told you that. And so it's true. You can oppose your flesh and be set apart from it and think totally different than the flesh. You can resist the desires and the passions and the lust of the flesh easily, very easily. If you have the Ruach HaKodesh in you, for sure. As a matter of fact, if you're led by the Ruach, you're not under Torah. You're doing nothing wrong. There's no laws against what you're doing. The laws are just against the flesh, not against the Ruach. Even if you are able to tame and control your flesh to the point where it's even set apart from the world and from the devil, even though that flesh is now turned into a defeated foe, a defeated enemy, and you've conquered it, the flesh will try and do as much in its power, even under its damaged state, as possible to trip up the Ruach. So as weak as it is, it will subtly try to make you stumble, even with a very slight thought. Oh, let's go talk to Susie Q, and we'll smoke one with her for all time's sake. What will that hurt? All of a sudden you start thinking about times gone by that you spent with Susie Q, and you say, I wonder what she's up to these days. And so you go over there, next thing you know, Susie Q's firing one up, right? The flesh is going, man, that feels good to sin. That feels good to desecrate Yahuwah's temple. Now, people say, I've had them say this to me too. Oh, well, Yahuwah created marijuana. Yahuwah created tobacco. So what's the harm in it? He had to put marijuana and tobacco on the earth. He created it for some reason. So it must have been for us to take pleasure in and to abuse our bodies with. No, you're incorrect. Yahuwah also put on poisonous berries, poison ivy, poison oak, poison mushrooms, deadly things. Okay, are you going to go partake in them and eat them because he created them? I think not. So I think the reasoning behind that is childish. It's no more than an attempt to sin. It's your body trying to convince you that Yahuwah created, so it's okay to partake in it. And it's not. It's just your body trying to trick you into obeying its desires, doing what it wants to do. So that argument doesn't hold water. It's kind of a childish argument, if you ask me. Oh, I don't know, that poison ivy and poison oak, he made that. Must be something in it for you. Go out there and smoke that or rub it all over yourself. Maybe it's good for your skin. You made it. Must be good for some reason, or he wouldn't have made it. Silly argument. Come on now. All right. Lost my place again. Where are we at? Okay. Okay, and I think I left off in 20. So in the works of the flesh are well known, which are adultery, whoring, uncleanness, indecency, idolatry, drug, sorcery, hatred, quarrels, jealousies, fits of rage, selfish ambitions, dissensions, factions, envy, murders, drunkenness, wild parties, and the like, of whom I forewarn you, even as I also said before, that those who practice such of these shall not inherit the reign of Yahuwah. You hearing that? Drunkenness, wild parties, and the like. But the fruit of the Ruach is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, trustworthiness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such there is no Torah. These fruits of the Spirit here, fruits of the Ruach, belong to Yahusha. It's evidence that Yahusha is dwelling in you if these fruits are able to be seen by others who are observing you, it's proof that Yahuwah, in fact, is indwelling you, because those are his fruits, not yours. So you can't try to counterfeit them or duplicate them and try to practice doing them and think that you can conquer these fruits and make them your own. It's impossible. These fruits belong to Yahuwah, not you. Your fruits are up there in 19. Idolater, unclean, indecent, you're a whore, adulterer, drug sorcerer, hatred, quarrels, jealousies, fits of rage, self-ambition, dissension, factions, envy, murder, drunkenness, wild parties, and the like. That's your fruit. That's the fruit of human. If you see people doing that kind of stuff, then you know they're living in the mind of the flesh. They have not been converted. They have not went through the set-apart process. Set themselves apart from their flesh, the world, and the devil. If they're doing those things. If they're doing these 9 fruits of the Ruach, that's evidence that the Ruach HaKodesh indwells them, because they belong to Yahuwah. And if they're displaying them, you can bet your bottom dollar that Yahuwah is in them. And they are in him, because he has their Ruach sealed for the day of redemption. And those who are Mashiach have staked the flesh. You've staked the flesh with its passions and its desires. If we live in the Ruach, let us also walk in the Ruach. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another and envying one another. Whew. Man, oh man. So if you're envying one another, if you're provoking one another, envying one another, if you're conceited, look back up there and see what that stuff up in there. Hatred, quarrels, jealousies, fits of rage, indecencies, idolatry, all that. That's just showing that you're still in the mind of the flesh. If you're conceited, you have a big, huge ego, think you're better than everybody else, more pious than anybody else, provoking one another into jealousy or into anger, whatever, trying to tear people down instead of building them up with love, tearing them down with your knowledge, and envying one another, jealous of each other. That's works of the flesh, man. Those are works of the flesh. And if you do that, you're going to be consumed by one another, which you will be. Look there at Galatians 6, 7, and 8. Galatians 6, 7, and 8 says, do not be led away. Do not be led astray. Yahuwah is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, that he shall also reap. Because he who sows to his own flesh shall reap corruption from the flesh. But he who sows to the Ruach shall reap everlasting life from the Ruach. That's powerful stuff, man. What's that telling you? That means if you give into that flesh and you do what that flesh likes to do, then whatever a man sows, that he shall reap. Because you sow to your own flesh, you reap corruption. So it's not going to help you. It's going to reap corruption, even more sin. See what I'm saying? But if you sow to the Ruach, you shall reap everlasting life. So the more you feed into your Ruach, praying, continuously praying, worshiping and praising Yahuwah, keeping your nose buried in the words of truth, you're feeding that Ruach, man, and you're going to reap everlasting life from the Ruach, because he's going to remain in you, and that means you're going to endure to the end, and you shall be delivered. Wow, right? Okay, so let's take a look here at Ephesians 1, 3 through 5. 1, 3 through 5. And we'll jump down to 11 through 14. Blessed be the Yahuwah and follower of our master Yahushua Mashiach, who has blessed us with every Ruach-like blessing in the heavenlies in Mashiach, even as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be Kadesh, that means set apart, and blameless before him in love, having previously established us to adoption as sons through Yahuwah, through Yahushua Mashiach, to himself, according to the good pleasure of his desire. Wow. Skipping down to 11:14 through 14, it says, and in whom also we did obtain an inheritance, being previously established according to the purpose of him, working all things according to the counsel of his desire, for us to be the praise of his esteem, those having first trusted in Mashiach, in whom you also, having heard the word of truth, the Besorah of your deliverance, in whom also, having believed, you were sealed with the Ruach HaKodesh of promise, until the redemption of the purchased possession, to the praise of his esteem. Wow. So that's right there, wraps up just about everything we've been talking about here. If we look over here at Ephesians 4:30, it says, and do not grieve the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah, by whom you were sealed for the day, or Yom, of redemption. Do not grieve the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah, by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. So what do you think that means? You go back over here to Ephesians 1:13, it says, in whom you also having heard the word of truth, the Besorah of your deliverance, in whom also having believed, you were sealed with the Ruach HaKodesh of promise. Back over here, and do not grieve the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah, by whom you were sealed for the Yom of redemption. And so here, you have now got the Ruach HaKodesh in you. You have been immersed with the Ruach HaKodesh. You went through the set apart process. You are now part of the everlasting covenant, or the renewed covenant. Okay. And then you're just sitting idle. So you're not doing nothing. And so the flesh begins to recover, to start gaining a little bit of strength back, and starts trying to figure out how to trick you into feeding it some sin so it can get stronger and come out of the hole, right? Recover. And you're just idly sitting by. Before you know it, maybe the flesh does get its way and causes you to bend to its will, and you sin. You allow that sin to take place within that fleshly body that you're dwelling with, the Ruach. Well, that grieves the Ruach. You're grieving the Ruach HaKodesh. He ain't going to give you back up easily, but that's still grieving him, because you're being a lazy servant. Okay, you're not fighting that flesh daily and keeping it beat down to where it's also set apart as the Mishkan of Yahuwah. Keeping it clean and set apart along with yourself. And so you're grieving the Ruach by not working and keeping his tabernacle, his temple, cleaned up and free from dirt and grime and spots and blemishes, things like that. So you're lacking on your maintenance, and you're grieving the Ruach, which is indwelling you. So do not grieve the Ruach. Be strong, be courageous. Beat that flesh up every single day by feeding it. Feed that flesh of yours truth. Read scripture to it. Pray to Yahuwah, praise Yahuwah, worship Yahuwah, sing to Yahuwah, do a dance to Yahuwah, read Psalms, read a poem to Yahuwah. Feed that flesh everything you can every single day to keep it weak and submissive to you, so that you do not grieve the Ruach HaKodesh, who has sealed you for the day of redemption and is indwelling you and helping you to the end, so you can be delivered. Don't quench the Ruach. Do not quench the Ruach. Do not grieve the Ruach HaKodesh. Do your job. Be a good servant. Keep a clean house. Be a good housekeeper and cleaner. Be a good watchman. Watch over Yahuwah's temple, over his house. Keep sin from contaminating it, staining it. Keep the old fleshly man at bay until he pays the price for his sins, which is death and returning back to dust. He can't be saved. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the reign of Yahuwah, and he knows it. The fleshly man knows it, so he don't care. He'll do all the wily little tricks that he can come up with to try to get you to feed him more sin, because he don't care. He knows his days are short. So be careful, be on guard, be a good watchman, be a good housekeeper. Keep control of that flesh. Don't even give it a second to breathe. Ephesians 4:20 through 24. Ephesians 4:20 through 24 says, "But you have not so learned Mashiach, if indeed you have heard him and were taught by him, as truth is in Yahusha, that you put off with regard to your former way of life, the old man." Put the old man off. "Being corrupted according to the desires of the deceit, and to be renewed in the Ruach of your mindset, and that you put on the renewed man, which was created according to Yahuwah in righteousness and set apartness of the truth." So there you go. That's what your new man is. That's who you are now. Okay, you were created according to Yahuwah in righteousness, his righteousness, and set apartness of the truth. So you were set apart by truth. The renewed man, the new creature, the rebirth, born from above. You're a spiritual man now, the spiritual father. Act like it. Stop saying I sin every day. No, you don't. What you do every day is you battle your flesh and keep your flesh from sinning. That's what you do. You're separated from that flesh now. You're no longer part of that flesh. You're different now. You're a renewed man. You're a new man, separated from that flesh. He's waiting for his execution. You're waiting for your new body and everlasting life. You're on a different path, man. Don't go back there and mingle with that flesh and act like his destiny's your destiny or your destiny's his destiny. That's not true. Battle him. Stop him from sinning. That's what you do. Every day, it's a battle. You can do it. You can overcome the flesh. You can control the flesh and overcome the flesh. You just need to rely on who's in you. And that's Yahuwah's righteousness. You have to yield to it. And that flesh can't do nothing. Ephesians 6:11 through 13 says, "Put on the complete armor of Yahuwah, for you to have power to stand against the schemes of the devil." That's one of your enemies. "Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, other people's flesh and blood, but we do wrestle against our own flesh and blood daily. But against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age, against Ruach-like entities of wickedness in the heavenlies," or also known as demonic forces. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Yahuwah, which is Yahusha, so that you have power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all to stand, stand then, having girded your waist with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness. So if you put on the complete armor of Yahuwah, you're going to have the immersed with the Ruach HaKodesh living in you. So the Ruach HaKodesh is on the inside of you, and your inner man is, your spirit is in him, and he's got you totally surrounded and protected, engulfed, totally engulfed and encompassed in there. Airtight, watertight, sin tight. Nothing can touch you. Ruach's got you covered. Tightest, your mind can't even imagine how tight that covering is. And then you clothe yourself on the outside with Yahushua HaMashiach. You got on the full armor, baby. Your flesh is suffocating. It's trapped. It can't do nothing on its own. Can't do anything. You're set apart from the world, and you're set apart from Satan and his demons. And there's no other place that you'd rather be than right there. That's where we all want to be. And we must endure to the end. And then we will be delivered. Yahuwah is not abandoning us, man. Yahusha's got us. He's got our backs, man. Matter of fact, if you put on the full armor, you're able to beat that flesh down and totally separate it from yourself, and it's no longer you. It won't sin no more. It can't. You put on the full armor of Yahuwah, which is clothing yourself with the Ruach HaKodesh, Yahushua HaMashiach, and he indwells on the inside of you, and you're inside of him, and he's got you in an airtight cover. No sin can get to you. You are powerless to sin at that point. Powerless to sin. You have to accept that. You have to know that. You have to believe that. And you got to understand that. And once you get to that point, man, you're right where you need to be, because Yahushua's not going to abandon you. There's no way he's going to lose you when he has you covered to that degree. You're no longer a sinner, baby. No way. No way are you still a sinner. You just need to toughen up and start beating that flesh up and put it in submission. Some people call that self-control. And it very well can be described that way, if you will. But I like to call it total denomination. Why is that word slipping my mind? Dominating it. So your total domination of your flesh. That's what I want to call it. Look at Colossians 3, 1 through 17. But especially to get the big picture here of this, concentrate really close on verse 1 through 4 as I read through it. But we'll read to 17. So Colossians 3, 1 through 17, paying very close attention to verses 1 through 4 to get the big picture. If then you were raised with Mashiach, seek the things which are above, which Mashiach is, seated at the right hand of Yahuwah. Mind the things above, not those on the arets. Don't even pay attention to what's going on down here. It's total sin. This place is saturated in sin, rebellion, wickedness, everywhere. Can't get away from it down here. So concentrate on up there where Mashiach is seated at the right hand of Yahuwah. That way you won't think about these tempting, sinful possessions, power, and positions down here. For you have died. That's pretty clear now. You've died. The old man's dead. And your life has been hidden with Mashiach in Yahuwah. When the Mashiach, who is our life, is manifested, when he comes back, then you also shall be manifested with him in esteem. So there's the big picture, folks. So you're being hidden with Mashiach in Yahuwah. You got your seal for the day of redemption. Okay, till he comes back. And then you're going to, when he's manifested and he's seen at his second coming, you also will be manifested at the same time he is in esteem. You receive your immortal bodies. And we're caught up with him as he descends upon the Mount of Olives, and we watch the entire world burning up and all that is in it. Let's continue to verse 17. Therefore put to death your members which are on the arets, whoring, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and greed of gain, which is idolatry. Almost all sin is idolatry, folks. Just about all sin is idolatry in one form or another. Because of these, the wrath of Yahuwah is coming upon the sons of disobedience, in which you also once walked when you lived in them. But now also put off all these: displeasure, wrath, evil, blasphemy, filthy talk from your mouth. Do not lie to each other, since you have put off the old man with his practices, and have put on the new one, who is renewed in knowledge according to the likeness of him who created him. Where there is not Greek or Yehudai, circumcised or uncircumcised, foreigner, Scythian, slave, free, but Mashiach is all and in all. Therefore, as chosen ones of Yahuwah, set apart and beloved. See, set apart and beloved. This ain't talking about your flesh now, is it? No. Put on compassion, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, patience, bearing with one another and forgiving each other if anyone has a complaint against another. Indeed, as Mashiach forgave you, so also should you forgive them. But above all these, put on love, which is a bond of the perfection. The perfection of what? The perfection of set-apartness. It's a bond of the perfection. And let the peace of Yahuwah rule in your hearts. Let the peace of Yahuwah rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be filled with thanks. Let the word of Mashiach dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing with pleasure in your hearts to the Master in psalms and songs of praise and Ruach-like songs. And whatever you do in word of deed, do all in the name of the Master Yahusha, giving thanks to Yahuwah the Father through him. Wow, man. And be filled with thanks. Boy, that's powerful. Be filled with thanks. You know, that's kind of like the story of Jacob and Leah. If y'all are familiar with that, I'll give you a quick, brief story on it, where she was filled with thanks at one point in her life. So what happened was Jacob fell in love with Rachel, and he wanted to marry her, but Leah was the oldest. So she went to work for their father for 7 years, and after the 7 years, they had a wedding party, and they got drunk, and he went into the tent, and they consummate the marriage, and here it was Leah in there. So he ends up marrying Leah, which the scripture kindly translates as he didn't love her, and so she was unloved. But really, the Hebrew word for that is hate. So he actually hated her. He didn't like the way her eyes were kind of droopy looking and stuff like that. And he just didn't care much for her. He was madly in love with her sister, Rachel, which was a younger sister. So anyways, he gets in there and he agrees to another 7 years. So the father gives him Rachel and he marries Rachel. Well, it turns out that Leah was jealous and envious of the sister, Rachel, because of the close emotional romantic relationship that she was having with Jacob, and he didn't care for her, so he didn't show her that kind of affection. So time went on, and he went in there and Leah did get pregnant. She gave a son, but Rachel was barren because Yahuwah saw that Leah was unloved or hated. He blessed her, and he didn't bless Rachel. And so she was barren, and Leah gave birth to sons. Well, on her fourth son, she ended up, or I think it was her fourth son, third or fourth, she had Levi. And so Levi, became the priesthood line, was greatly blessed through Leah. And then Rachel remained barren. And then she ended up having another son, and she named him Yehuda, which was greatly blessed through that tribe. It became a tribe of Yehuda. So Yehuda became was the line in which King Daud would come, and not only King Daud through that line, but also the Mashiach, the sovereign of Yisrael, would come through that line of Yehuda, Leah's child. And so when she named Yehuda is when she stopped being jealous and envious about her sister and Jacob, and she actually named him Yehuda because she was saying that she was thanking Yahuwah for her son, for giving her sons. And also, in a kind of a twist and play on words, she was saying that she would now look to Yahuwah for her joy and her happiness, and Yahuwah would be her husband, and she would look upon him as that. And then Yahuwah, through her thankfulness, totally blessed her and her children. And the end results of all that was that because she was thankful and she turned to Yahuwah and accepted him as her joy, happiness, and her husband, and was thankful to Yahuwah for her children, and not to looking to Jacob and stop being jealous and envious of her sister Rachel, that he, in the end, Jacob actually buried Leah in the cave of the patriots, along with Abraham and Sarah and Yitzhak and all the patriots were in there. And he also was taken there and buried after they left Egypt with her. So she ended up being buried with Jacob and all the other patriots in that cave. And Rachel, who died giving birth to her second son, Benjamin, was buried along the route that they were taking when she had the child. And so Leah ended up in the cave with Jacob, buried there, waiting on eternity. So because of her thankfulness to Yahuwah and recognizing Yahuwah as her true love. So very, very interesting here in that aspect. So off onto a little tangent, but not too bad. Let's look at 1 Thessalonians 4, 1 through 8. First Thessalonians 4, 1 through 8 says, "For the rest then, brothers, we beg you and call upon you in the Master Yahusha, that as you received from us how you should walk in to please Yahuwah, you should excel still more. For you know what commands we gave you through the Master Yahusha. For this is the desire of Yahuwah, your set-apartness. Man, y'all reading that with an exclamation mark? For this is the desire of Yahuwah, your set-apartness, that you should abstain from whoring, that each one of you should know how to possess his own vessel, your own body, and set-apartness and respect. See that? So it's your responsibility to take control of that flesh and not let it sin. You need to. You have to. If not, Yahuwah will do it. And you're probably not going to be liking what that feels like, probably, since you're going to be part of the pain and the discipline that goes along with what Yahuwah does. Not in passion of lust, like the nations who do not know Yahuwah, not to overstep and take advantage of his brother in this thing, because the master is the revenger of all such, as we indeed said to you before and earnestly warn you. You see that? For Yahuwah did not call us to uncleanness, but in set-apartness. Therefore, he who rejects this does not reject man, but Yahuwah, who also gives us his Ruach HaKodesh. Wow, powerful stuff. Are y'all hearing that? So he didn't call us to uncleanness, but to set apartness, man. You have to set your inner man apart from your outer man. Therefore, you don't be saying, I sin every day, because all you're doing is bringing Yahuwah's wrath on you. He ain't liking you saying that. I hope you know that. You got to understand the set apartness here. Therefore, he rejects this, talking about the set apartness, what I'm explaining to you all evening here. You reject it. This does not reject man, but Yahuwah, who, for the desire of Yahuwah, is your set apartness. Be set apart from the flesh totally. But you don't stop there. You take control of the flesh. You control it. You dominate it. You train it. You make it listen to you, to where it's not even, it's set apart as well. And it's not sinning either. And then you clothe yourself with Yahushua HaMashiach, as Yahuwah indwells you and has your Ruach sealed for the day of redemption. Very powerful situation here, if y'all can see it clearly. If not, command your eyes to be open and command your ears to be open, because you need to get this. You can't keep walking around kicking stones, talking about, I sin every day. I still sin. That's not the way to be behaving or talking, especially if you're in the renewed covenant and you're obeying the set-apart command. It's his desire. Read it yourself. 1 Thessalonians 4, 1 through 8. That's huge. That's huge. Okay, now look at 1 John, 1 Yehukanan 1, 5 through 10. It says, and this is the message which we have heard from him and announced to you. That Yahuwah is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and are not doing the truth. So if you're saying that you're in the everlasting covenant, okay, and you've been born again and all that, but yet you still go out and allow your flesh to sin, you're lying, man. You're not doing the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Yahushua Mashiach, his son, cleanses us from all sin. From all sin. If we say that we have not sinned, we are misleading ourselves, and the truth is not in us. This is before the set apart process, or before your conversion, or before you entered into the renewed covenant, before you were reborn. Then this is true. But afterwards, it's not true anymore. It's only true before your conversion. If we confess our sins, he is trustworthy and righteous to forgive us the sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. And he'll be white as snow. He cleanses us with the water and the blood. He wants us to admit we're wrong here, folks. This is before the conversion. This isn't afterwards. Don't get that confused. People get that confused all the time. This is not talking about after you've entered into the renewed covenant. This is way before that, before you were even water immersed, man. See, he's talking about confession. If we confess our sins, he's righteous to forgive us the sins and cleanse us. See, it's before you were clean. See that? Don't get that confused. If we say that we have not sinned, we make him a liar and his word is not in us. Again, this is all before your conversion, before you were cleaned up. We were all sinners and worthy of death. But afterwards, we no longer sin. Matter of fact, we're powerless to sin. Look at 2:15 and 16. Actually, 2:6 first. Go to 2, Fushihukanan 2:6. The one who says he lives in him ought himself also to walk even as he walked. So we're wanting to walk in the true pattern of Yahusha, which we do when we do the set apart process. We go through that rebirth. We're walking in the true pattern of Yahusha. Okay, so now go down to 15 and 16. It says, do not love the world, nor that which is in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Because all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. So these are the three areas of default, not our enemies. Our three enemies are the world, our flesh, and the devil. These are the three areas of fault, human fault. Pleasure, possession, and position is what our little hearts desire while we're in the mind of the flesh, not the mind of the spirit. Okay? We no longer desire these things once we're reborn, born again. Look at 1 John 3, 4 through 9. Everyone doing sin also does lawlessness, and sin is lawlessness. This is before your conversion. And you know that he was manifested to take away our sins, don't you? And in him there is no sin. Everyone staying in him. Okay, so you're staying in him, right? So the Ruach HaKodesh is in you. He has you sealed for the day of redemption, which means you are in him. Right? You're in his Ruach. He's got you totally engulfed, right? With sin-proof covering. Airtight. So everyone staying in him does not sin. You only sin before your conversion, before your confession, before your repentance, before your water immersion, before the immersion of the Ruach HaKodesh, before entering the renewed covenant. That's when you sin. Afterwards, you do not. It says it. Everyone staying in him, because you've been immersed by him, does not sin. Everyone sinning has neither seen him nor known him. If you're still a sinner, you have not seen him, nor you do not know him. You have not been set apart. You don't know him. Little children, let no one lead you astray. The one doing uprightness is upright, even as he is upright. The one doing sin is of the devil, because the devil has sinned from the beginning. For this purpose, the Son of Yahuwah was manifested, to destroy the activity of the devil. Everyone having been born of Yahuwah does not sin. See, that's if you've been reborn, you do not sin because you've been set apart. And you're sealed for the day of protection, of redemption, being protected. Everyone having been born of Yahuwah does not sin. You can only be sinning before your conversion, not after, because his seed stays in him and he is powerless to sin, powerless to sin, powerless to sin, because he has been born of Yahuwah. That's going back to where we first started this study, Yehukanan 3:5, born from above, with the water and the Ruach, the set apart process. Once you've gone through it, you're powerless to sin, powerless to sin, powerless to sin. In this, the children of Yahuwah and the children of the devil are manifest. Everyone not doing righteousness is not of Yahuwah, neither the one not loving his brother. Okay, so this is just confirming what we've been studying and talking about, interpreting throughout the evening. Once we've reached this goal of set apartness, which is the desire of Yahuwah for us to be, then we are powerless to sin, folks. The sin has no more, we're no longer the servant of sin and death. It serves us, not the other way around. Okay, so now look at 1 Yehukanan 5:18-20. 1 Yehukanan chapter 5, 18 through 20. We know that everyone having been born of Yahuwah does not sin. See that? There it is again, man. If you've been reborn, you cannot sin. So don't go telling people that you sin. Just tell yourself, man, I got to work harder to beat this flesh up and take control of this flesh and teach it and train it to be a good servant of righteousness rather than serving death and sin. But the one having been begotten of Yahuwah guards himself, and the wicked one does not touch him. We know that we are of Yahuwah, and all the world lies in the wicked one. See, so the world is our enemy, the wicked one is our enemy, our flesh is our enemy. And we know that the Son of Yahuwah has come and has given us an understanding. And we have an understanding of this set apart command. It should be very clear at this point to everyone. And we know that the Son of Yahuwah has come and given us an understanding so that we might know the true one. Not the true two or the true three, but the true one. And we are in the true one, in his son, Yahusha Mashiach. This is the true Yahuwah. So Yahusha HaMashiach is the true Yahuwah? Of course he is. And everlasting life. This is the true Yahuwah and everlasting life. That you are in the true one, his son, Yahusha HaMashiach. Well, it's because he's indwelling you and he's protecting you. He's got you sealed, so you're in him, inside of you. He's in you and you're in him, inside of your body. And once you get your body beaten down and trained and submissive to what you want it to do, then you can clothe yourself with Yahushua HaMashiach, put on the full armor of light, which is Yahushua HaMashiach, and clothe yourself in him and smother that flesh, suffocate it to where it don't even have a chance to even think about sinning at that point. Its goose is cooked. And you have conquered sin and death, and you have conquered your flesh in Yahushua HaMashiach at that point. You are an overcomer at that point. Okay, folks, that's about it. I'm going to wrap it up right there. So the goal of this study this evening was for us to get a better understanding of the flesh versus the ruach, then that there's an outer man, an inner man, and what it all means, what happens, how does it happen, what's the process, what are we supposed to do, what's our job, what Yahuwah do, and what happens to the flesh and to the ruach, what's going on. And I think all them questions are answered this evening. I think we all should have a good understanding of that and feel very confident in knowing that we are powerless to sin once we have entered into the everlasting covenant. We have been immersed by the Ruach HaKodesh. He's got your back, man. He's not going to let the flesh overtake you and contaminate your inner being again, but he will hold you responsible for work, being a hard worker and working on that flesh to get it cleaned up, because it's his temple, and get it cleaned up and sinless, like he did your inner man. And if you do that, then you're definitely an overcomer. You've understood the spiritual matters, you've took action, and you have conquered sin and death in the flesh. Very powerful stuff. But if you don't, and you remain weak, and you still aren't able to overcome that separation and understand it quite clear, and you still put yourself with your flesh and think that you're still sinning and this and that, then Yahuwah will take over. He's not going to give you up easily after he's cleansed you and sealed you. He'll take over and he'll discipline that flesh. He will cause it to suffer. And we get diseases, we get aches and pains, we get, ailments, we get all kinds of stuff from that. And we have to feel that stuff and go through that experience, which may be unnecessary if we only did our job and kept that flesh cleaned up and understood the set-apartness and what our job is to clean it up as good as we possibly can and maintain it. Once we get it cleaned up and set apart like our inner being, then we can clothe ourselves with the full armor of Yahuwah. Clothe ourselves with Yahushua Mashiach and just suffocate that flesh where it doesn't even have a chance, man. But make no mistake, folks, through this entire process, he has you sealed, your inner being sealed and separated. You're powerless to sin. It's not you sinning, it's the old man. I hope we can all understand that statement now, fully and clearly. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Peace, joy, and love, truth to everyone. Keep doing the good work. Keep cleaning up your body. Keep separated from the flesh. Battle against your enemies, the world, the flesh, and the devil and his company. Keep your nose in the word of truth. Pray, worship, praise, sing, dance to Yahuwah continuously. And don't forget about tomorrow. We have the Zoom, not Zoom at noon, but Nazarene Assembly Scripture Study Group going on tomorrow. It's right here on the same channel, Sparking You as Yah. And it's at a different time. It's at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which would be straight up noon on the East Coast, 11 o'clock a.m. here in Texas, and varies from whatever time zone you're in. But right here on the same channel, 12 o'clock noon time, Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to do our scriptural study group. We're in Luke, I believe Luke 7. And if you never visited there, you should. We learn a whole lot. There's a lot and lots and lots of good stuff comes out of each one of these weekly studies we have. And the best thing is we're in compliance and in obedience to Yahuwah's a command to assemble and congregate and listen to the Torah being read. And everybody has a voice. There's 10 slots. We can have 10. It's a live broadcast. 10 people come in at once. It's all we can get on there. But then we have the chat room. We can fill that up. And if you just want to be incognito and just sit back and watch and listen, that's fantastic too. I'd like to have you there. But don't miss it. It's a lot of fun and lots of knowledge of Yahuwah, both literal and spiritual. So be there or be square. And remember to stay in love with Yahusha HaMashiach. So long, Netzarim, beloved of Yahuwah. So long, everybody. See you next week.